Hello, everyone, and welcome back. And welcome if you are new. Welcome, welcome. I hope everyone is doing well. So, I have a guest today on my show, and it's going to be just a fun conversation with Gil from The Whole Truth. And we're just going to go over the Tyler Robinson case and the Candace stuff and what's been going on with uh, her and just the funny things that have been going on with this whole thing. Let's get into it, shall we? Hello. How are you, Gil?
I'm good, EJ. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on. We've been talking about it and planning it, and so now it is happening, and it is crazy. But before we get into everything, I have to ask you a very important question.
Shoot.
Okay, so I understand that you are Jewish, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, is there a way that I can give you my Venmo or my banking information so you can get it to the right people? Because I'm having a problem with, like, being paid out on all I have been for, like, now 11 months waiting on this payment, and so I was so excited to find out you were Jewish because I was like, "Oh, this is my in. This is
Yeah,
my in." So I'm wondering if you can get that to the right people, the right division. Do you know Bibi?
I wish because I'm probably owed some money too. I haven't gotten anything. No, $7,000, no shekels.
I thought
So
you were are you not connected like a mind hive to all other Jews in the world? So I because how do you plan all the world events and everything if you're not, like, somehow connected to each other, like, with some kind of superpower? Your sound went out.
there's always some tech. See, we can't even get our own tech right, and we're accused of plotting everything. Um, but yeah, contrary to common opinion, we don't actually gather around and plot and take plot our control of the world. If we did, I would have a much easier life with tech that worked and more daycare for my kids, more childcare. So
I just imagine, like, when they talk about it the way that they do, I imagine Pinky and the Brain, like,
yeah,
"What
I
are we
always
doing
imagine
today,
uh,
Pinky?"
some like table, like dining table, kind of like the scene from Tucker Carlson, with Thomas Massey and MTG. Like that's how I always think that they envision us, like meeting with the antlers and some, you know, um, what's the word? Some boiling brew, some grains to eat around the table. Some children's blood. But I haven't been invited to any of those places, so
Okay, well, dang, I thought this was my in, because like,
no.
I'm super broke, so
You and me
have you
both.
have you been keeping up on the drama that's been happening recently with the group
As
chat drama?
somewhat, I don't live online, so I get snippets here and there. I was part of Gary's X space for a few hours, or maybe for like 1 or 2 hours today, so I got some info from that, but I am not super familiar with it. Maybe you want to give me like a good recap or something?
Well, I am, like, of the group of 92.
Oh,
Like,
I'm so jealous of that, by the
I
way.
am in big trouble too because, like, apparently there's gonna be, like, police reports happening now and stuff, so, like and people are saying we're going to jail, so, like, apparently I could be being arrested at any moment, for just being in a group chat.
Well,
So
I will represent you pro bono if that
oh,
happens,
thank
but
you.
I don't think you have anything to worry about.
No, it's so silly, it's so dramatic and weird.
Yeah.
So and then the second group chat that I'm in was leaked today. Well, it was the other day, but they picked it up today, Diligent.
Uh huh.
So I'm gonna show you this on the screen.
Okay.
I'm
And
just constantly in trouble. Let me pull it up.
but so was there any doxing that was done by anyone in the group of 92? I know you made me
No,
an honorary member, by the way, and I appreciate that. I'm number
uh,
98. But yeah, was there any? Because I again, I wasn't really following it very closely.
okay, so there was not that I saw any doxing, and I don't think that was even the claim made by the we shall not say her name. If her name is mentioned in the comments of my video, I will delete them. So please do not do that. But the person that is upset with the group over just like basic internet drama or
Mhm.
whatever, she got mad at the group. She left the group. Then a person that was in the group sort of like leaked her things because after like so she got upset about like things that happened on YouTube. She brought that to X. And then because people in the group chat, I guess, didn't notice it right away, or because when she brought it to X, people from the live chat who had X accounts then started like, screw you, basically, and on her page on
Mhm.
X. And then she came over to the group chat and was like, F all you people too, you all suck and I hate all of you. And nobody knew what was going on. People come and go. It's not like everyone's just hanging out in there. So she cussed
Right.
everyone out with a message. She removed herself, which makes everything go away for her. Okay, so this
Mhm.
is where it gets really complicated. So
Mhm.
then she was just making, I guess, just a mess with people. She was like reposting Project Constitution, etc. So then people in the group chat were like, what's going on with her? Is she just always been like on their side and was pretending? Or like, people are just chatting. It's normal human behavior. Like if
Right.
somebody comes in that you've all been friends with, cusses you out and you don't know why, and then they just start posting like Candace stuff and like, everyone's going to be like, what the heck's going on? I kept telling people, just don't mention it. Don't say anything. Don't talk about it, whatever. Oh, and in that message where she cussed everyone out, she said she was going to have her own space. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Um, that day. And then the drama that she had with the YouTuber, which we're also not going to say his name, he removed himself from X and then he, um, like made a video about it. He didn't say her name, but everybody knew who he was talking about. And that's never wise to do because then his chat is talking about it in the live chat and that person is watching and screenshotting it and everything, right? And so then while he was alive, he got a message from Gary saying, "Hey, I'm going to cancel the show," because Gary didn't know what was going on. He just started seeing the drama. So then the guy was sad about it and just said, "Oh, great. Now, because of this drama that I'm in, Gary's like not going to do a show with me anymore and everybody's mad at me." And then his viewers saw that. So then they went and started leaving messages on Gary's videos being like, "Why are you being mean to fax me?" Blah. So then Gary's being inundated and he doesn't know the whole story or anything. So then he's like, "Oh, I'm just going to put these people," because there was another YouTuber, she got a super chat. Like this all happened around the same time. All this events happened around the same time. So he's live streaming, she's posting on X, leaving the group chat. The other person starts live streaming. So then somebody mentions it. And she's like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on, but just tell her I never said that," or whatever. Then the live stream starts talking about her. And then so she gets dragged into it and the person is mad. And so then so Gary puts everybody, including the person who's mad, into a chat, a group chat or text message. I don't know how they all did it because I wasn't a part of that. And was trying to get it to work out, behind the scenes. And
Mhm.
um then he that wasn't working, so he made a space, which was a terrible idea. If anybody would have consulted me, I would have just said, never mention it again, don't do any live streams on it, all this stuff.
Mhm.
um and that's what I was saying in the chat too, like in the group chat. I'm like, because anybody could be in there
Mhm. Right.
screenshotting whatever. And um so then she comes into the space super mad at Gary and like completely crashes out on him. And she's like, "I said I was having my own space." Well, Gary didn't see that because you don't, the no one sees every message in the group chat. Okay.
Mhm.
Like no one's hanging out in there and people are like messaging, chit chatting mostly. That's mostly all that's going on in there is just people chit chatting. Like talking about their life, talking about what they seen on X, talking about this post on X, or whatever. Here's, and it's all mostly people in the chat. They'll share like their own post or like a reply or whatever, and then they'll talk about it. So you don't see everything in the chat. There's no way, like, unless you just sat there all day, like scrolling. So Gary
Mhm.
didn't see that. So he didn't know. And he's like, why are you so mad? I don't understand what's going on. So then she, like a couple days later, had her own space where we realized she was mad at Lisa. Now this is when Lisa comes into it, because Lisa knows, you know.
Mhm.
So I only knew about the drama around the other creators and her getting upset. I only knew about that. Apparently, Lisa knows, and her and other people are part of the Fighting Candace on TikTok group.
Mhm.
Okay. So apparently, the girl who got mad has never liked Lisa. She thinks she's pretentious and whatever. She has problems with her. People just sometimes don't get along, but she never said anything about it, but she was saying it to other people. So
Mhm.
when the girl started freaking out, she said, people sent Lisa things like, oh, by the way, she doesn't like you. So then she uh made a new group chat, because Lisa didn't have access admin role of the other group chat. So she made a new one so that people could come over there, because she didn't know if the girl was still in that group chat or whoever else might be sending her stuff or whatever. So she made a new group chat that I got put into too. And because people just add you. You don't like
Mhm.
ask to be in it. Like, people just add you to it. And you
Mhm.
can like leave if you want to, or
And
stay.
this is all on X, right? The group chats and everything. That's the X
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then, anyway, she put the account that's harassing everybody, the law account, and her, somebody put, I don't know who put, but put her and her second account into the group chat. And she was in the one previous, and I think it took a minute for everybody to figure out what was going on. And then that admin eventually removed her. But
Mhm.
she took screenshots of everybody talking about the girl being concerned and freaked out in both chats, and sent them to the girl, who is slowly over like the last couple of months releasing things. So she'll like, not mention any of us. Everything seems to calm down, and then she'll just like release something. So she released something on me. She released something on Britta, but this is all from the time period where that happened, because I was like, this will keep going on and on. If people keep, bringing it up, it'll keep moving forward if we don't stop bringing it up. So that's what I basically said. And then she was like, you suck. I hope your YouTube channel fails. You need to focus on that instead of drama. Like, unblocked me, tagged me. I never responded, blocked me again, whatever. Um, but that's what she had, was a screenshot of me saying, that kind of a thing. Like, everybody just don't talk about it anymore.
Mhm.
And so I don't know how many screenshots they have, because apparently, and this is where it gets complicated, if you remove yourself from a group chat, it all goes away. But if you are removed, and this is so stupid, this is like the worst way to do it. If you are removed, you still have access to everything up until the point you removed, and the member list that is somehow updating on X. So if you remove yourself, because it's in your DMs, like in the section where your DMs are on X is where the group chats will be, with
Mhm.
along with your messages to other people, whatever. And so apparently if you remove yourself, it all just goes away. But if you are removed or kicked out, it's just still sitting there.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So that's how Law has the whatever she has, I don't know, up until the point she was removed, and she still has access to the list that is updating.
But
So
I mean,
when we all so she gave Shady recently. This is when all the drama got like blown up to the level it is now. She gave Shady the screen recording of the first group chat, which is called Protecting Miss Erica Kirk.
mhm.
That was started like back in April or something.
Mhm.
And it's just a bunch of people, like, we all talk to each other on X. We're all followers of each other on X. And then we all just talk, hang out in there,
Mhm.
like, people talk about their life, they talk about their kids, like, they talk they're making friends,
Right.
whatever. I never saw any doxing, and the thing that Shady said was she didn't say there was doxing, I believe. She just said there's coordination going on in this chat, and these are the members, okay? And I don't even know what that means because, like, I don't coordinate with anybody. I don't go, "What is
Right.
what are the steps for" I haven't seen anybody doing that. Like, "What are we
Right.
doing today?" Whatever. I haven't seen anybody doing that. I haven't seen anybody posting addresses or doxing people. I haven't seen any of that going on. But Shady just said coordination. Then Diligent picked it up and said he added to it. And he said, there are mass reporting people in here and they're like,
Mm.
this is an op and they're getting paid by Turning Point and uh Israel and like all this ridiculous, like it was this, he added way more to what the girl had said. And um then Candace picked that up, and it's a screen recording of all of our names, our X handles, and
Mhm.
she put that on her show
Right. Yeah, I saw clips of that. Yeah.
and said it was out to, like, get her,
Right.
which she's very rarely even brought up. Like, I rarely see her name in there brought up. I
Mhm.
remember, then something about her address, she said something about her address. When Laura Loomer was going at her, and she
Mhm.
was, like, posting stuff about her cars and stuff like that. I remember people talking about it and posting, like, linking Laura Loomer's posts in there, but I
Mhm.
don't remember ever actually seeing her address or anything like that. So,
I mean,
but,
it's
like I
it's
said,
really not that hard to find someone's address for anyone that cares to look for it. You know what I mean? So,
it's also
and let
not, like, illegal to I could find out your address right now, and I could
yeah,
text it to someone and be like, "Hey, so this guy had on my show named Gil, here's his address." And, like,
right.
that's
Unless
not
you're
really.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, unless you're encouraging, someone to harass or threaten them, it's not. There's nothing wrong with sharing someone's address, but it depends on the motivation and everything. I mean, I wouldn't encourage anyone to do that, but yeah, just
Yeah, like,
legally
if
speaking,
well, I guess what I was thinking in my brain was, like, look at his house, like, because sometimes, like, you like to look at houses, so, like, my friends have sent me their address or addresses that they're, you know, "Oh, look at so and so's new house that they bought," or something, and I've went on
right,
Zillow and, like, looked at their house, but I'm not, like, sharing it online, I'm not,
right,
doing anything nefarious, so I'm just sharing an address, and not even publicly, right? Because the
right,
group chats are not public,
right. And it was
so
just 92 people, that kind of a small community.
yeah.
Mm.
So then recently because Law has access to this too, I guess, she released the second group chat that was made after all the drama exploded in June.
Mhm.
And that has our updated list, and it has our names have been updated. So you know how we all, because they called us the group of 92, so now we're like making a joke out of it and
Right.
saying, yeah, we're the
The
group of
agent of
92, and we've put like the numbers, like I have been giving people their operative numbers. So I will admit to that. Like, I've been handing out operative numbers
yeah,
in the chat and on X, just to random people who want to be like, hey, I want to be part of the group. So it's like, well, here
I'm
you
number
go.
98. I appreciate it.
No, you're 0098.
0098. Yeah. Isn't
Yeah.
that 98? There's
No.
double 09. My dog is scratching. One second. Let him in. Ah, sorry about that.
That's fine. Look, when I started the number system, I hadn't
Mm.
didn't put like enough thought into it. So there actually could be somebody that's just 98. So you're
Oh, got
actually
you.
0098. Okay.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
because when
Cool.
it first started, I was like, oh my gosh, we're probably gonna need like more numbers. And then
Mm.
people started doing the out of 92, like the dash line, with 92.
Right.
So I had to think of a way to come up with more numbers that didn't, and then some people wanted the same number. So it's pretty complicated, but system I have
Well,
going on
I'm
here.
I'm honored to be a part of it. It seems like a good group of people. I saw some of the people I know. Yeah, and everyone is I mean, they're just out to protect Erica Kirk from all the vile vitriol that's been posted about her and propagated. So I don't see how this is like in any way nefarious. There's one side that's going after Erica and really going after anybody who defends her, and the other side that just wants to stand up for what's true. So that's my
And
take
we
on it.
all like we've all nothing we're doing in the group chat is different than what we do like publicly, like
Right.
reposting things, saying this isn't true, saying screw you to certain people. I mean, like, it's nothing like everybody knows that I'm a pro Candace or not pro Candace. I'm a pro I guess I don't know even the narrative. I'm not I believe in the what the state has put forward in the Tyler Robinson case. But let's
You
look
believe in
at
the
this.
evidence.
Yeah, let's look at this X post.
Yeah. Diligent denizen. I know diligent mostly from the story about the receipt, which I'm still kind of confused about.
Yeah, so here's what he says. Another leaked Slop group chat cell. So like we're a cell, like a terrorist cell, including
So,
Charlie, including Charlie Kirk show staff, Blake Neff, amongst others like Paramount Tactical Eyes. Apparently, some users changed their names and removed the titles of their groups after exposure. And so, and how many little online terror cells are there?
the
Okay, so
terror
this is
cells.
yeah, and this is a screen recording of users on X, which includes myself. And I can remove that now. Uh did you see it? Did you see the screen
Well,
recording?
right now, it's on my phone. The video on my Streamyard.
Okay, let's play it again. So you can see their screen, it's the screen record of our names rolling.
Hmm.
And what's so
All my
funny is
favorite people, to be honest.
I know, I know.
It's like all the
Um
best follows.
And what's funny is like we changed our names after they called us the group of 92 and we didn't change like our actual name. We just put numbers next to our names. Right?
Right.
So like he makes
The
it sound like we're trying to hide something. Um
These people are like paranoid conspiracists, but their paranoia is so stupid. Their conspiracies. I'm sorry. I finally just started watching a little bit of Baron Coleman. I watched the interview of him on Julian Dory, and I came to the conclusion that the conspiracies are so stupid that I think that they're kind of genuine, because if you're just trying to grift, you're going to come up with something clever, you know? But if you really believe it, then you're going to it's just dumb. So, I don't know, Gary disagreed with me. He thinks Baron Coleman's just grifting. Um but his conspiracies are just so stupid. It's hard to tell.
yeah, and then the reason why the second group chat's name changed is because one girl left as an admin and put another one in place. So like that person just changed it because I don't know why. It's not to hide anything. Like uh, we know that law still has access to it. So unless they close that down, both of them, she'll be able to see any updated list, right?
Hmm.
So and so they have to either just close that one and make a new one or um I don't know, just not care that everyone can just see who's in there, but it's not a big deal. It's so crazy that it's being made into a big deal, terrorist cells, like, it's just so crazy. I don't know. And
Yeah,
and people are, like, coming at me, like, on X, being like,
really.
"Oh, you're part of this cell that's, like, terrorizing all of our accounts," and I'm like, "No. No, I'm not doing anything." And they're like, "So you're saying you've never mass reported an account?" And I'm like, "No, like,
Mm,
I've never reported any account. I don't care about any of that stuff." Like, if I don't like somebody, I'll just block them, which I do very rarely.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the whole thing is just silly. Um,
It kind of sounds like a high school kind of drama thing going on, um, just just kind of petty, from their side, going after this group just because we don't agree with them or the group doesn't agree with their cult leader, they all start attacking and getting very defensive. That's what it sounds like.
it's really starting to get really ugly because, this whole situation has been sort of difficult because if you are talking about the case, they'll come at you and they'll yell at you saying you're a Fed slopper and accuse you of like stuff like you want to silence people. And it's like, I don't want to silence anybody. I don't care what anybody says. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If you want to like Candace or not, that's fine. But I'm going to tell you that it's probably like, I don't agree with it. And I haven't liked Candace for quite a while because of what she did with the Andrew Tates when they were arrested and how she defended them, helped them lie and spread their lies about their case, and
Mhm.
helped them harass victims of that case. And so I was like, okay, done with her. And that was like years ago.
Mhm.
And then I did my 14-part series on Candace Owens. And going back through everything, I started realizing she's always been like this. She's always attacked people, made up wild accusations about them, tried to ruin their life. I mean, this has been all the way back to, the early days.
Yeah.
So, and there's several victims that she has, and it's sort of like nasty because what she did back then and what she continues to do today is weaponize her audience against people she doesn't like. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
so I'm completely against that, and I think if you're okay with that as a person, if you like sitting there watching her destroy other people and make up lies about them, then that says a lot about you as a person. So that's my only problem is, like, I have a right to have my opinion on Candace Owens just as much as they have a right to have their opinions too,
Of
and
course.
that's all I've ever done with this whole thing.
Right. I'm with
Um,
you. Yeah. It's just very cult-like behavior amongst her and her following. I think she's a narcissistic sociopath. That's my non-doctor opinion, non-expert. That's I've
well,
encountered them.
that is also HG Tudor's opinion. I covered like because in my series, I pulled clips from all over the internet to make points about what I was trying to say. That's sort of what I do with my channel, a lot.
Mhm.
But HG Tudor, who has a YouTube channel, is a psychopath. Like he's a legitimate psychopath. And so
Mhm.
he will examine, uh, people in the
Interesting.
public sphere and to determine by him knowing what a psychopath is if they are. And he said she was.
That's
So,
interesting. I want to. Yeah, I'll check
yeah.
that out.
Um, okay, let's move on to the next thing. So I saw that you were covering Barron's show on Julian Dory the other day.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I was expecting a little bit more, to be honest. I heard, that he has a huge following, that he's basically number two to Candace Owens when it comes to these theories, and he's a lawyer. So I was expecting some impressive points, and I was really kind of just disappointed because I thought everything he said was pretty stupid. And I'm not just trying to denigrate, I'm just being honest. Like he everything was suspicious to him, just like trivial things. He mentioned that somebody went like this in the crowd at the Charlie Kirk event, and like that was suspicious. That could have been a signal. And I guess like theoretically, yes, that could have been a signal, but without any sort of evidence to back that up, it's much more likely that someone's just rubbing their arm. And he had a whole bunch of these points. He pointed out like that there were people wearing backpacks on either side of Charlie Kirk, and part of his staff, not students. And again, it's like, yeah, you can interpret that as possibly indicative of some conspiracy or something, but it's like, why would you jump to that? These are just like totally normal things. And so I was really expecting more from him. He brought up the 30-06 not leaving an exit wound, which to me is like kind of the holy grail for the conspiracy theorists, is that seems to be what has the most legitimate question behind it. But I think a ballistics expert, I defer to the experts on that when it comes to that. So I was not impressed, to be honest. I did not hear him say anything substantively. And I'll give him a little bit more credit than Candace Owens because he said that he's willing to entertain the possibility that Tyler Robinson is guilty. So I haven't heard Candace say that yet. Um, she just keeps doubling down on the fact that he's innocent. So yeah, I mean, if my one takeaway is that he didn't provide anything interesting, in my opinion. I was not impressed. Um,
Yeah, so Baron Coleman um did not he has a weird past. There's a lot of stuff going on in his past. I'm not going to get into that. But there are some odd things like but he didn't really have a YouTube presence before this case. So he was a very small YouTube channel that he didn't have a bunch of followers and he didn't wasn't making like regular content or anything. But
mhm,
then when this whole thing happened, he sort of blew up. Like I was watching him in the beginning because
mhm,
in the beginning we were all so distraught about Charlie that we were kind of moving from place to place that was talking about Charlie Kirk and what was going on. And, in the beginning, they didn't even have a suspect, you know what I mean? And you were going to from place to place to get people's reaction, like the next time they were on a show, like just all the people you listen to, what are they going to say about what happened? And so, and I was sort of in a daze.
mhm.
And so it took me a minute to figure out what they were doing, that they were like spinning this narrative. And then I was like, wait a minute, like this is getting weird, And
Yeah,
so then I stopped listening to them. But the thing with and so then he blew up. Like he has like hundreds of thousands of followers now and literally will have like 30,000 plus live viewers in a live stream. And so
yeah,
he's making like $6,000 a month in super chats. God only knows how much in ads and all this stuff since this happened. So like this has dramatically changed his life. You know what I mean? Financially and everything.
yeah. Well, and that probably gets to what Gary's point was that he is doing it for the money. I sometimes say that if I wanted to blow up, I could kind of just go down the conspiracy rabbit hole and point to my credential as a lawyer and say, oh, this is all set up, and I'm sure I'd get bigger following. But
Oh, I'm a conspiracy theorist. Like I could totally become like I know even all the lingo. That's how I
yeah,
knew when Candace Owens was doing her series on Erica, I knew what she was putting into people's head. I was surprised she never actually came out and said it, but you saw what people were saying online, and it was that Erica Kirk was an MK Ultra plant that was, programmed and put into Charlie's life for this event to happen. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I encountered somebody on X Space recently that mentioned that, and my response is like, yeah, I guess anything. Well, they actually mentioned that it was Tyler Robinson was MK Ultra. Um,
Yeah, he would have to be too to be the patsy and
right. Yeah, and I mean, like, again, anything's within the realm of possibility. I don't shut anything out as impossible, but I just kind of go where the evidence leads me. You got to provide some sort of evidence. Otherwise, I could say anything. I could say that he was time traveler, and you can't disprove it. But it just doesn't move the case along. So the evidence, I think, is just overwhelming. I know it's gotten to be a cliche to say that, but it really is based on my experience in the courtroom.
yeah, so what's crazy about the whole thing is that uh the MK Ultra thing, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I know where all this stuff comes from, and then because I would adopt a certain conspiracy for a while, but then eventually as you, like, grow and, like, change and you look into things more, you know, a almost all conspiracy theories that I have believed in, I have also then looked into, and the thing with the MK Ultra mythology that as it exists now is
Mhm,
not the original MK Ultra program. So they have added over the years, like people would write books and they'd come up with all this stuff. And so then people take it in as like, this is what MK Ultra was. But MK Ultra really only involved drugs. So they would drug people heavily with like um you
LSD,
know,
wasn't it?
yeah, psychedelics, and
Right.
then they would do weird stuff to them or put them into weird position, moments of life, like, you know what I mean? Like, they were dosing people without them knowing and then seeing what happened in certain situations, right?
Mhm.
And documenting that. And that's sort of what the MK Ultra program was. And
Mhm.
but there has been a whole mythology, like many other conspiracy theories, like built around it, that is just
Right.
made up from like certain authors, certain people who then put together like they did that with the list of the families. So there's like a bloodline of families, and they connect that to the MK Ultra, and they MK Ultra their kids, and they program them to be like rulers of the world and all this
Right.
stuff. So one conspiracy, which is the MK Ultra, which was a real thing,
Right.
will then be made into a giant mythology, and it's really hard to even track down what was true. But there are, like, just recently I saw a guy that was had a guy on his show who went through and explained like what MK Ultra was. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like which I already knew, but I thought it was interesting somebody was talking about it again, because it's really hard to break it all down. And so there's this mythology, like even with the Epstein case, we see like a mythology that was built around it, around this Epstein thing, that then and it continues to grow, right? And become something that it might not necessarily have been to start out with, but it's hard to separate it, you know what I mean, from what's really reality and what has been made up over the years.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and that's common amongst like conspiracies is that there's a kernel of truth in there, and that and people that know that truth then feel like they're in the know, and then there's others that take that and they just profit off it. You know what I mean? And just lie. Like, you know, some people just have to learn to accept that there are those out there that will say things that are not true, and for their own gain, for their own profit. And there's a lot of naive people that just accept everything that's being told to them, whether from the government or from sloppers. So skepticism shouldn't apply only to the government or the official narrative. You have to be skeptical of the people that are trying to sell you also, if that makes sense.
well, I actually was, like, it took me a while because I've been a conspiracy theorist since I was 17.
Yeah.
So I have my entire life, I have been a conspiracy theorist. And then actually, once I became a conspiracy theorist and I didn't trust the government, obviously, it took me a while to realize that other people will lie too.
Right.
Right? So people
Right.
will come on these shows and they'll say, "I was in an underground base," and they could be totally lying and making that up, and
Right.
I didn't realize there were so many crazy people who would do stuff like that, and they'll latch on to stuff, and you see it with crimes too, like, when there's a crime that happens and the cops open a tip line, they get just, like, all this wild, crazy, like, nonsense, like, people will
Yeah.
actually sit down and call a tip line and say just the craziest stuff, and so, it's hard for people to imagine that there's people out there that do that.
Right.
Um, so, and then the other thing about conspiracies is that, uh, like, it's like a psychological thing. Like, some of the people like are really actually do believe this, and they take it in as like their worldview and stuff. And then sometimes people will believe it, but and so they'll tell people about it, like, they'll have a podcast or a book or whatever, and they're not necessarily lying because they actually believe it, but what they're saying isn't true, like
Right.
and then nowadays, it's gotten so crazy that they're completely rewriting history, so, um, the the whole, like, the Jews did, JFK was never a thing that was ever like, a part
Mm.
of any conspiracy back in the day. Like, I remember I had all the JFK books that were written, by people back even in time before I was, born, and there was, uh, lots of conspiracies. There was the mob story angle of it, the Cuba thing, and then the one that I really liked the best was the whole, Dr. Mary's monkey situation. So there
Not
was this
familiar.
la
Yeah.
there was this lab this animal testing lab in Louisiana. And there's like this series of events that lead Oswald there. He was hanging out with these people. They were trying to like design a bioweapon to kill the person of Cuba, the leader of Cuba with this bioweapon. This all is legit. Like this is all like actually true.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if the conclusions and the way they connect everything is true, but there was a murder of a woman who was one of these around all the time that the JFK thing happened. She was found murdered in her house, burned, but there was no fire or anything on her. It was a extremely strange murder, and
Mhm.
her monkey was missing that she was doing the experiments on.
Hmm.
So there's a whole book called Dr. Mary's Monkey. So my point is that there was never any like Jewish thing going on with any of these conspiracy theories. There was the CIA wanted him gone because he said he was going to do away with the CIA. There was all this kind of stuff, but there
Right.
wasn't Israel.
Yeah,
And then
that's a new
there
thing.
wasn't, yeah. And then originally there wasn't even Israel with the 9/11. That came later, and people
Yeah,
started saying stuff because when I was younger, that's when I actually became a conspiracy theorist with 9/11. And because I was 17 when it happened, and there was never no talk about Israel or any of that stuff. It was
yeah,
that they allowed because there was bin Ladenites around hanging out. They had been causing all kinds of problems in Europe, and because they had been given passports in Eastern Europe after the Baltic Wars, because they were there fighting in the Baltic Wars with the help of the Clintons, and then they were sent all over Europe with these passports, and they were causing problems. They made it to America. They were actually warned, like they knew they were here. And the whole like conspiracy was that they allowed it to happen to get like the insurance and to get an excuse to go to the Iraq, to the war in the Middle East. And none
right.
of it was all just our corrupt politicians, the Bushes. Like it wasn't like specifically like Israel. And so
Mm.
all that came later. And I didn't even, because you look at something, you stop looking at it. So I didn't even know what they meant by like dancing Israelis, any of that stuff, because that wasn't there originally. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
had to be like, what are you guys talking about? So they are literally like re-envisioning, like what is it called when you re-envision history? They're re-envisioning conspiracy theories from the past and acting like that's how it always was. And they're changing things in history, like they're saying that Stalin was Jewish now,
yeah,
and they
I've
have
heard some people say that, but yeah, I
they
think that's
have
been
this
debunked.
fake genealogy report that they
Yeah.
spread around, and I'm like, "This is insane." Like, he was not a Jewish person. Like, that is
Yeah.
absolutely not true.
Well, some people say Hitler is Jewish now, and it's like, yeah, a lot of people want to shoehorn the Jews into everything. So it's like that's the easiest end place to just end the rabbit holes. Like, okay, let's just make it the Jews at the end, so we don't have to keep going down the rabbit hole. But it's
It's so
interesting that
boring, though. Like, I don't want I mean, like, they're making conspiracies so boring and, like,
yeah,
okay, well, like, what's the point of having a fun conspiracy theory to, like, go down a deep rabbit hole if it's always just the same thing? It's like,
yeah, that's funny.
um
That's a good point. I mean, again, I'm not like an anti-conspiracy theory person because I believe that there are conspiracies. But again, I have to have some evidence. And if you could provide some evidence, then I'm willing to entertain it and look into it further. But at least with like what Baron Coleman is saying about the Tyler Robinson shooting, it's just like it's totally vibes, and like he actually said it during his interview, like it just didn't sit right with me, and I'm like, I don't care, like that doesn't matter, like things don't
well,
sit right with people all the time.
yeah, another thing that they do is that they'll just, look at, like, one thing like it's in a vacuum. So they'll be like, "This
Right.
one thing that seems odd nullifies, negates, like, all everything else," And it's like,
Right.
that's not how it works. And thank goodness that I actually at some point, like several years ago, got into watching cases. So there would be like a crime, a murder, something, and you literally follow. There's people that do this, and there's like law tubers that will do this. You follow one case, and sometimes you'll be following multiple from the crime all the way through the pretrial motions, all the way through the, you know, voir dire before trial,
Mhm.
all the way to the
Yeah.
verdict and then the sentencing hearings. So
Yeah.
you'll follow a case. So thank goodness I did that, because it really gave me perspective with this case, because you can't, like, the stuff that they're saying, the defense team would be able to show that, and they're not gonna wait until trial. They're going to be filing motions. You know, there are cases where people do get set up, like the Karen Reed, case, which was recent, and the Richard Allen case. Those are controversial, more so the Richard Allen case, because 2 little girls were killed. But like, they were clearly being set up, and their lawyers, their defense team tried to get the information to the public, and when in Richard Allen's case, the judge was trying to keep them from doing that, they actually made this whole, like, memo, I forget what it's called, and they put together this whole, because she wouldn't let them have a alternative defense, because there
Mhm.
were other suspects. This was a crime that happened years and years before. They pinholed this guy, like, years and years later, and they really didn't have any evidence on him. Like, it's
Yeah.
so crazy, because he owned a blue Carhartt jacket, and they found a bullet, unspent bullet, in his room, that then they said, because they found a bullet in the scene. This was in the woods. So the
This is
bullet,
this is Karen Reed case, or I want to look
this
this
is
up.
this is the Richard Allen case. So the girls were not shot. They were, their throats were cut. It
Hmm.
was a really gruesome murder, and they were laid out in what looked like a pagan ritual, with branches set over them in specific ways with weird symbols in the
Hmm.
woods, and they were not shot, but they found a bullet on the scene. So they tried to connect that bullet to the bullet found in this guy's room, like, 6
Hmm.
years later, 8 years later or something, and because he owned a Carhartt jacket, and there was, like, a picture of the guy on the bridge where the girls were before they were abducted into the woods, and you couldn't tell who this person was or nothing, but they were wearing a Carhartt jacket. That was all that they had on this guy, and he was there that day. There were tons and tons of people there that day, because it's a walking trail, and it was finally a nice day after winter, and he went and told them, "I was there." Like, they asked everybody to come in, and then
Uh-huh.
they found his little sheet of him being there, like, years later, and then they're like, brought him in, did the Reed treatment to him, the Reed
Hmm.
interrogation, and he held strong for the whole thing. Then they took him from they tried to bring his wife in and say, "He killed those little girls," to his wife, and she's, like, crying and like, "What's happening?" Then
Hmm.
they, like, took him. They didn't take him to county jail. They put him in a maximum security prison in solitary confinement pre-trial, and gave him psychotic drugs until he lost his mind and was, like, eating feces and stuff, and they used
Wow.
all that against him. Yeah,
When was
so they're
this? What like time period?
recently,
This was a
like,
recent, like in the
yeah,
2000s, late 2000s, or
2003 maybe,
I'm gonna look it up.
2004.
It sounds like an interesting
It was
case.
in Indiana, and the whole case is weird, like, federal agents got murdered, there were, like, these pagan neo-Nazi dudes that were under, like, suspicion, and they even seemed to like, they had no like, they posted an image on their Facebook of, like, dead people, like, in those positions, like, on their, so his defense team was trying to bring in the defense that there could the an alternative person
Yeah.
defense, right? And
Right.
the judge wouldn't let them, so they, like, released a memo. So my whole point of this is that when something is going on wrong in the court system, the lawyers, the defense attorneys will try to let you know, the
Right.
public and everything.
That's a great point. And like I'm a criminal defense lawyer, so I kind of that's actually my forte is to look for holes in the arguments by the prosecution, try to find gaps, try to figure out the defense. And the truth is that with the Tyler Robinson case, I mean, it's a pretty hard one based on all the evidence. If you're his defense lawyers right now, I think you're trying to get a plea deal and look for like as much mitigation as possible. But
And
yeah, a lot of
also the judge is extremely cooperative, giving them
right.
everything they need, giving them
Yeah.
time, letting them, file their motions and get their way on a lot of stuff. So they're not being like railroaded or held back or anything. There's just nothing that I see suspicious here. And there is a lot of evidence, whether people want to, like, that's the thing. These people, they say it's not evidence. They say, there's no evidence that he was on that roof. And it's like, there is. Have you ever
Mhm.
watched a court trial? It's not like they have to have,
Yeah.
a crystal clear picture of this guy on the roof to say he was on the roof. There's ways they put the case together to prove he was on the roof. And so that's one of the things you've been doing is like organizing all the facts. So I don't know if you want to go over the
Sure.
facts of the case.
Well, yeah. I mean, let me pull up just so I can have it in a good chronology. But we have the surveillance footage, not just of him, or maybe it's not 4K footage, but it's certainly someone that matches Tyler Robinson's description. But we do have his surveillance on surveillance photo or footage of his vehicle that they were able to lock in his license plate. And Tyler Robinson never reported his vehicle stolen or anything like that. So we put his vehicle on the campus multiple times. We put Tyler Robinson on the campus through the surveillance footage multiple times. There's going to be more corroboration, by the way. What we saw at the preliminary hearing is just the prosecution doesn't want to put all their evidence out at the preliminary hearing. Not only is it logistically just due to time constraints and not necessary, but they didn't want to call the parents maybe to testify because you never know how someone's going to act on the stand. So they had more than enough evidence to hold this over for the trial. Why would they want to risk putting the parents on the stand to say something and then they could just have a change of heart and lie on the stand or what have you? So that's one of the points
Well,
I noticed.
they were only trying to prove probable cause on every charge. So if they have enough like, "Hey, I have this amount on this charge," they're not putting every piece of evidence they
Right.
have on that charge. They're just putting, "We have this for that charge, we have this for that charge," and they're just going through, and they don't wanna hold like, it's not supposed to be like 2 trials, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, and that's a great point. And yeah, I mean, this was the longest prelim I've ever seen. I mean, I'm sure that there's been longer, but I haven't been, allowed that much time. So this judge really was being diligent. He was letting the defense just go super detailed. And Tyler Robinson, from what I can tell, has a good defense team. They're doing what they can here, to point out the limitations of DNA evidence and other things. But it's not an easy case to defend against. Um,
Well, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but the one of the attorneys, the one from California, I'm terrible with names, but the guy who was going really heavy on the DNA,
mhm,
he is actually an advocate for to get changes in the way that the courts see DNA and to, like, because that's the thing people don't know about defense attorneys. Defense attorneys are actually our number one defender of our rights
yeah,
in the country. They stand up every day because if you let one precedent get through, then that
right,
changes everything. So they're always fighting for precedents and they're always trying to challenge the way that the court system sees for forensic type evidence. So for a while, like they were trying to get bite marks in, and that's not actually scientifically like legitimate to actually lock somebody away on. So defense
right,
attorneys will go through and they will figure out the problems with things like tool marks, with this, that, or whatever. They'll say it's not good science, and they will fight for that to get corrected in the court system. And he has actually made changes to the way that some jurisdictions see DNA evidence. And so that's also an interesting thing to know why he went so crazy with the DNA.
yeah. Well, I mean, he did a great job. I don't think it's going to move the needle that much. And I feel like there's so much evidence here, and this is another point that
No,
I
but
make.
he will use those arguments, like, if anything gets, if the judge says something's up with this, he accepts the argument, he can use that in the future for his fight with the DNA,
Yeah, and
stuff.
and it's important. I agree. I mean, because science is not, it's not like 100%. Science changes, you know, and
Mhm.
so it does. I agree that it shouldn't just be like taken at face value. Sometimes, you know, you'll look at DNA and it will say 1 in 500 trillion, and you're like, okay, so that means absolutely. But, you know, there's a methodology error in the reasoning along the way. And so I agree with you. And this is what I'm saying. I think that Tyler Robinson is being given a very good defense team. And, you know, I want to remind anyone that anybody that thinks that Tyler Robinson's defense is in on the conspiracy, Tyler Robinson could fire them. You know, he could just in open court say, I want a defense team that, for example, if he had an alibi that a lot of people claim he has, and his defense lawyers are not presenting that, he could in open court say, I want a new defense team that will present my alibi.
Well,
So,
and these are like career these people like one of the lawyers represented the Mendez brothers. These are people
yeah,
with like careers and like have built a career on their word and their honesty and their integrity through their lives as defense attorneys. To imagine that they're just all of a sudden in on, railroading
right.
a client is literally insanity. But the other thing they say is that the defense team doesn't want to bring forward any of this stuff until trial, and I'm like, "That is not how it works." They're not go
Yeah,
They would get in so much trouble if they just set on evidence and let their that would, exonerate their client, and they just sat on it for years and years while he was in jail waiting for a trial. They would actually probably get disbarred, I mean, who knows?
yeah.
Fined.
Well, yeah. That's another great point. Is I have heard that. You know, I said like, you know, they could present an alibi at the preliminary hearing, and people have countered, well, maybe, you know, strategically they're waiting till trial, and I'm like, well, you're allowed to present an alibi at the preliminary hearing, and if it's corroborated and it's compelling, he wouldn't be in jail right now. You know, that would be enough to get him out. Um, so, you know, sometimes you might like strategically wait until trial for certain certain tactical reasons, but yeah, it would be malpractice to sit on like, you know, evidence that would exonerate your client or provide a perfect alibi and just wait until trial. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
And once
So
a jury is seated, you are like, it is, I mean, now you're just it's a flip of a coin, right?
right.
Because jury trials are scary, very
Yeah.
scary, because you never know what a jury's gonna do. They do very strange things, like with the Richard Allen case, they convicted him with very little evidence and really shady stuff, but they don't watch trials, they don't know that this was all shady, right? And
Right.
so, um, uh I think of the, ballerina lady that was convicted here in Florida for killing her husband when it was in self-defense. They wouldn't let her use the, stand your ground, uh, defense, 'cause that's another thing. If you kill somebody in self-defense, you don't just automatically get to use stand your ground. The judge has to decide if you're allowed to use that or not, and the
Mhm.
prosecutors will argue against it. They don't want you to use it, and so, statistically, women, and this is what's so weird, is that Republicans will tell you, like, they're super into Second Amendment, and they want all the women to buy guns so they can defend themselves. When they do defend themselves, though, in red states, statistically, they, are always found guilty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that case, the prosecutors were the most vile women I have ever seen. They made up narratives about this woman that were completely just made up from their head, that she used him to, like, it was nuts. They made her seem like something she wasn't, and then, like, it was so bizarre, but that jury found her guilty, and she's in jail, and because she's in jail for, like, 30 years, because when you use a gun, so normally if you just killed somebody, like, it would be 15 years or whatever, but then because she used a gun, that makes the crime go up,
Enhance
the
it.
amount of time that you get or whatever. And so it's a sad case because her husband was stalking her. She fled like 3 states from him, ended up in Florida. She tried to move again, and then he like confronted her at where she was and whatever. And so then he attacked her, she says, and then she shot him. But so yeah, so she didn't get the stand your ground. So and in Florida you only get 6 jurors.
And
So
Utah's it's 8.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah, so you never
that's
know what a jury's gonna do, and sometimes you don't even get 12.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I would say that most times juries, especially more conservative juries, are much more friendly to the prosecutions. Um, so yeah, I mean that would be another reason why Tyler Robinson's defense would be committing malpractice if they're sitting on good evidence and just waiting to risk it at jury trial.
yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's like um, I think that it's for that reason because juries are so unpredictable that we're going to get a plea bargain. That's been my wager on this case, but I could be wrong. I could be totally
I
off.
actually think that too. I think that the defense will be a pain in the ass because DP attorneys, penalty attorneys, that is what they do. They be a pain in the butt, drag, litigate every single word of every single thing and drag it out and just become a pain to the point where the prosecution and the state just want this to finally end. And then they get them to do a plea deal, and then they're like, okay, we've saved your life. You can try again in appeals, right?
Yeah,
To get free. And so their only concern as a defense attorney is a DP attorney is to keep them from killing you, the state.
yeah. Yeah, and so like from the defense's point of view, because there is a lot of hard evidence in this case, it makes sense why the defense would want a life without possibility of parole plea. And then from the prosecution's point of view, for the reasons you just mentioned, it makes sense for them to put that on the table. Not maybe not right away, but a little bit closer to trial. The other thing is that even if they get the conviction, then it goes to a whole sentencing phase. And that's what I would be probably doing mostly as Tyler Robinson's defense lawyer is trying to get as much mitigating factors, mitigating circumstances as possible. Showing his other good qualities, showing that he has a possibility of remorse.
He
Because I
turned himself in. He
He's
was upset
cooperative,
after the thing. He expressed remorse to Lance Twiggs. They will
right?
bring all that in, and you kind of see them hinting at this throughout
Right.
their motions that they filed with the court and stuff to
Yeah.
put an image of Tyler being, not a criminal normally, a good citizen, turned himself in. And so all that, yeah, will be brought up for the mitigating factors for sure.
Right. And yeah, he doesn't have a criminal history, and so that would be another mitigating factor. Um, but yeah, I mean, but still, the evidence here is like really overwhelming from the prosecution's point of view. We also have, and this is just what's publicly available because not everything has been made to the public, but there's been stuff that's publicly available and still wasn't presented at the preliminary hearing. So stuff that we know from the search warrant affidavits, which are like his Google search routes, which put him again just around UVU uh, after the murder.
And by that, you mean, like, what he put in, like, addresses into Google Maps to route
Exactly.
his in his
Yeah,
phone.
yeah. So he, according to the search warrant, they extracted this from his phone. He had a search about 23 minutes after the murder from like a shopping center that was about 5 to 10 minutes away from UVU over to the car wash, which was another about 5 to 10 minutes away. And then on top of that, they have surveillance footage of him at that car wash, him and his vehicle. So these things just are synchronized perfectly. They have another Google search from basically where he was caught on the Ring camera location or the Nest camera. That was around 1:35 in the morning back, and then his destination was his home address. So all these things are going to be very like hard for the defense because also keep in mind he didn't live or work around there. If he did, then the defense would have better explanation for why he was there. I don't think that they're going to be able to argue that he wasn't there because all the evidence, all the surveillance, everything, he was there. Um, I don't even, I think that their argument is basically just going to be trying to say there's still some reasonable doubt. I don't think they're going to be, you can't just like point to alternative theories without any evidence to support it. So they can't use the conspiracy theories without some foundations.
I wanna ask you something here because I heard somebody on a space, I think it was Gary's, I popped in for a little bit while I was getting ready, for the show, but I heard somebody say that Tyler Robinson's defense team can just bring in their own theory of the case, and they could just say that it was an exploding mic, and I'm like, "That is insanity." Like, can you explain why they wouldn't be able to do that?
Yeah, the judge would disallow it. You got to have some sort of, first off, the lawyers can't just argue evidence. You can argue, you say in the opening statement what the evidence is going to show, and then in the closing argument, you tie the evidence up and you argue your case. But you can't just get up in front of the jury and start saying, actually it was an exploding mic or something. You have to get the evidence from somebody on the witness stand. So if they have an expert that's qualified and actually saw the body or some other qualifications that he has personal knowledge, then they could argue that. But I mean, couldn't
But
just
they
yeah,
couldn't argue that even anyway. The first step to be able to argue something like that would be that the judge would have to allow it because the judge doesn't just let you come up with any defense. Your
right,
defense has to be approved by the judge because you can't just have a defense where you're like, "Oh, it was, space aliens that like,
right,
put me into a trance and then, whatever." You have to say there's certain types of defenses that defendants are allowed to use, and then you have to explain to a judge why you're going to use that particular defense. Like sometimes it'll be like an alternate person and there's, good reason why it could have been this other person and you have to convince the judge of that and then they allow that. And sometimes it's, other stuff. So to be able to use the exploding mic theory would have to get approved by the judge first. Then once it was approved by the judge, they would have to have a way to bring it into court, like you were saying, like an expert witness, which would also have to be approved by the judge through voir dire process and stuff like that. So they would have to get them in front of the judge off not before the trial starts. Sometimes they do it in the middle of a trial when you want to bring an expert in, just and they haven't done a voir dire yet and there's a objection on one side or the other, they'll stop the trial, send everyone out, have a voir dire. And
yeah,
so and then that person has to prove to the judge that they are qualified to talk about this
right.
theory, right? So there's a several steps that they can't just go out on the floor in front of the jury and just start saying they have to make a foundation and
Right. Yeah, and most of that stuff gets decided before the trial even starts.
yeah.
The judge is just going to sustain any objection if the defense just starts bringing up arguments that are just kind of out of left field, and the prosecution's going to object, say lack of foundation. This is not in evidence.
Facts not in evidence.
Facts not in evidence. Lack of personal knowledge, all sorts of basis, and they'll be sustained, and that'll be the end of it. If the defense has an alternative theory that they want to present, they can, brief the court on it ahead of time and suggest the witnesses. Because again, you still need some witness to bring out this testimony. Now, it could be that they call Tyler Robinson to the stand. I don't see that happening, but all the witnesses would need to be approved so that the other side will have discovery about that witness and look up their
Oh, and you
resumes and
can't
all
just be a
sorts of
random
stuff.
person either. Like you have to have a CV and you have to have been published and you have, because I've watched trials where they want to bring in a person and like with the Karen Reed thing, with the Karen Reed trial, they wanted to bring in a physician who also did some forensic pathology, but she was amazingly a physician her entire life, but she worked she had a speciality of dog bites. Okay.
Mhm.
And she's like probably the only person in the country that has this speciality because she worked in the prison system as a physician for a while, where the dog bites happen when the cops arrest people. And so she's seen a lot of dog bites. She worked in LA in the trauma center. So she wrote like a dissertation, or she wrote some kind of thing on dog bites, like
Yeah.
canine bites. And so she actually reached out to the defense and said, "Hey, I have expert in this." Because they were trying to say that Karen Reed hit her boyfriend, who was a Boston police officer, with her car, and she hit him with her taillight, and he flung into the yard, hit his head on the yard, and he died, and she left him there.
Mhm.
And but he had, you know, swollen eyes, the head injury, and he had bite claw marks of what was clearly a dog. Of anybody who's ever seen a dog come in and, you hold your arm out like this, it was dog bites on
Mhm.
his arm. She dropped him off there for the party, which was full of other police officers, right?
Mhm.
And then no one saw him again except for when she found him the next morning in the yard. And
Mhm.
they tried to say she hit him with her car and that shattered her taillight. Okay, so they're trying to say that the taillight,
Yeah.
which was not broken until they got it into their custody, the police.
Right.
So but they were trying to say it was, but like through evidence that we could all see through, actually looking at stuff, her taillight was intact because when she was pulling out in the morning to go look for him, it was snowy.
Mhm.
And you could see the red light as she hits the brakes from that taillight come on. And
Mhm.
they were trying to say because a piece of snow sort of went through it and reflected off the house lights that it wasn't there anymore. But as she goes a little farther, you can see, because she's not in that zone with the snow falling, you could see her red light. Well, those taillights and those Lexuses, if they're completely demolished because they found the diffuser on the scene, right? The diffuser is what spreads the light through that taillight. So
Mhm.
without that diffuser, that taillight will not light up. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So her
Yeah.
taillight was intact when she went to go look for him early in the morning. And so when they took her car in, though, then the taillight pieces started appearing all over the yard where he was found, only after they had her car. So, so they tried to bring in a dog bite expert, right?
Mhm.
And so the state clearly didn't want a dog bite expert in, so they made this poor woman go through, like, this older woman go through days and days and days of voir dire trying to say she wasn't an expert because she'd only published here and it was only about police dogs and, all this like nonsense where they broke her CV down. So you can't just be some Joe Schmo. You actually have to have a legitimate
Real.
professional
Yeah.
CV, have published on the topic you're talking about, had peer review, et cetera, et cetera.
No, that's a great point, and you're making me want to look into these cases. You're clearly very knowledgeable, and they sound like really interesting cases, at least the way that you're describing them. So I'm gonna watch some documentaries about these two cases.
Well, that's how she got the one of the greatest defense attorneys in the country, Alan Jackson, who she
Mhm.
could not afford because she sent him the picture of his arm and said,
Mhm.
"They're trying to say that my tail light did this." And he was
Mhm.
like, "What is
Wow.
going on?" And so
Yeah.
he took the case.
Cool.
And he's out of California. I mean, you've heard of Alan Jackson, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard it. But yeah, I mean, I don't follow a lot of court cases as closely as I should. I'm busy. But I want to follow these two. I've been following the Tyler Robinson case. That one I've taken a
Well,
particularly interest.
let's go over the facts that you've compiled on the Tyler
Yeah.
Robinson.
So, but also I wanted to just add to what you were saying. It's not just they have to have a good CV and a good resume and be published, and they also have to have personal knowledge. They had to have inspected the body. They couldn't. Any expert that says it's an exploding mic, the, will be asked on voir dire. Did you even see the body? Did you go to the
Or
medical exam?
pictures, sometimes they
Yeah.
look at pictures if the case is older.
So, I mean, these are not real defenses that the defense lawyers are going to use. So, in addition to the Google route maps from those two locations, we have all the surveillance, as I mentioned, and he went to campus 3 times, and then the fourth time he was around campus. So, we have his vehicle on campus coming and going, and that you do see very clearly license plate. But the first two times he's in one set of outfits, um, and the third time he's in the long black shirt and the jeans, and that's when you see him with a limp. He has the same hat. Actually, it's kind of hard to tell if it's the same exact hat, um, at least from the footage that I've seen. But he definitely has a hat in every single um, surveillance. And you see him walking with a limp. He's going to the Lucy Center. He goes up the Lucy Center. Then you had Officer Bagley's testimony. Officer Bagley was the UVU officer that initially responded. He testified that he heard a rifle shot. It sounded distinctly like a rifle shot coming from the Lucy Center. He's very familiar with the campus terrain. That's what he recognized. He testified also that a fellow officer agreed it sounded like a rifle shot because they heard pretty quickly after that they got somebody in the crowd. And to him, it was like, well, I thought it was a rifle shot. I'm going to go check out the Losi roof. So he went up to the roof. He saw the disturbance in the gravel that was consistent with somebody lying in the prone position from where the shot would have been taken. He also found the red and black screwdriver, which was over on the other side of the roof toward where we see the black figure jumping down later in the surveillance. So we have that. Now, Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs' DNA is on that screwdriver. Then they found.
So wait, I didn't realize the screwdriver was closer to where he jumped off. So, okay, so he probably put it in his pocket, and as he was running, it fell out. So when he got to the woods, he couldn't quickly disassemble it and put the rifle in his jeans like he had walked through the neighborhood back to his car. And
Mhm.
so that's probably why he left the rifle.
That's a good point. Yeah, he does. I mean, the text messages are the main thing that I focus on because they're just so incriminating. And I think a lot of people think that if you delete text messages, they're deleted. They're not. Um, so, but he mentions that in
Oh,
his
and
text messages.
while we're talking about text messages, they are extracted by normally the company that is used. There's a couple other companies, but the main one that's used is Celebrate.
Right. But
And so
yeah,
people are bringing it up like as if that's some kind of like weird thing because it's owned by a cybersecurity company that's Israeli. But this is used in almost every case I've ever watched, every murder case. They use these tools, and Celebrate is the number one tool that they use. And so that is not abnormal at all, right?
that's not abnormal at all. And I mean, yeah, I mean, Israel's just like, it's a technological hub. So a lot of tech comes from Israel. There's nothing surprising about that. But they didn't just even extract it from Tyler's phone. They also took the photos of the text messages on Lance's phone. So you have it from two different sources here that are
They probably
corroborated.
also they probably um extracted data from Lance's phone as well. It was just in the very beginning of their investigation. They went there. They're like, "Oh, you have text messages? Show them to us." And then they took the pictures because they're
Right.
right there they're trying to figure out what's going on. So, it's not like they're only relying on that. They probably did extract from Lance's phone.
Yeah, they probably extracted from Lance's phone. They probably, I mean, I don't think that you can find text messages from the cloud, but what you would be able to find is the cell phone site tower data that'll match the outgoing time of the text
Because
message.
they would want to know where Lance was too. They're gonna use his phone to have like, in their investigation, they would have looked
Yeah,
and seen where his phone was, where's his data pinging, all that
right.
stuff.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point. And I mean, Lance only was given use immunity. This is another fact that I think a lot of people are misconstruing. Everyone's saying that, oh, he was immunized from prosecution. No, he was just given use immunity for his statement. All that means is that they're not going to take that specific statement and turn it around and use it against him because they wanted to have it. But that doesn't mean that they cannot, if they find other evidence that puts Lance involved conspiracy wise or after the fact or anything, they can totally still prosecute him. I don't see any evidence that that's what's going to happen, but they're not. they're not barred from doing that. They're just not going to use that specific statement or two statements that he gave against him. We also have him wearing that same color shirt, the same maroon shirt that he was wearing the first time in the surveillance footage. So what I think happened is that he changed back into his uh at least the shirt. I'm not sure if he changed his jeans when he ditched the rifle. He ditched the towel and he ditched the bullets, the unspent bullets, all in that little wooded thicket right near campus. Which
Because the bullets were in the gun, right?
the bullets were in the gun, and the spent casing was
Mhm.
also in the gun, and all of these had etchings on it. And I think the etchings.
This is what's so funny. It's like there's a person on a roof. They jump off the roof and somebody gets shot. They jump off the roof. They go into the woods. The cops see this on footage. They go into the woods and there's a gun with a spent shell and then people are literally like, "How can you say he was on the roof?" And it's like,
What
"Guys,
yeah, at a certain point, skepticism has to yield to evidence. Otherwise, it's not skepticism. Skepticism is wanting to see evidence. But when there's a lot of evidence that's presented and you're still just refusing to accept it, that's not skepticism to me.
well,
That's
ancient skeptics, like these skeptics, it was actually the way that they had a worldview and a thought process was they were skeptic of what they believed. So
mhm,
skepticism starts with yourself. You
right,
examine your worldview and your beliefs to see where
right.
you could be wrong and stuff. So kind of skepticism begins with you, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, it's not skepticism if you're just refusing to accept anything that doesn't go in line with what you want or your preferred narrative. I have no preference here. If I find out that it was Israel, if some evidence comes out that it was Israel that killed Charlie Kirk, I would be very surprised because I would think that was very stupid of Israel to do that. But I would not want Tyler Robinson to be punished. Why would I have nothing personally against him? I have no personal stake. I just want whoever actually did it to be held to justice. So, um, yeah, I mean, you gotta hold both sides to the same standard, or hold all sides to the same standard. But what I was going to say is that they also captured footage of Tyler Robinson at Dairy Queen, local Dairy Queen, around 6 p.m. that same day. And he's
Is
wearing
that in any court record or is that just coming from Candace Owens?
the Dairy Queen, was not presented at the preliminary hearing, at least not the parts that I watched. I watched most of it, but I
I
couldn't
didn't
watch all of it.
I didn't see it in there. They talked about a Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
but that photo of him, that comes from Candace Owens. She released it on her show in the very beginning. So I'm
Well,
wondering, is there any actual documentation, like in the motion hearings and anything that says he was at a Dairy Queen?
it was, I think, mentioned in a search warrant affidavit because I think they tried to get all that footage from the Dairy Queen. Um, I could ask my AI model, which I uploaded. It's not just pure AI. I uploaded all of the court documents and the preliminary hearing transcript and everything. So, with that caveat that it might not be 100%, I could ask for the source of that. I think it did just get public. It was just from the public record.
Yeah, so
But
that comes from Candace Owens.
that's interesting. How
Yeah,
did
and then
she explain
there
how she
was a
got
bunch
it?
there was a bunch of conspiracy theories built around that Dairy Queen because then that Webb guy, that what's his name? He's an old conspiracy guy, something Webb. He
Mhm.
went to the town and said that that Dairy Queen was demolished and doesn't exist. And then some people said that the ads that were being shown in the Dairy Queen next to him were like not from that time period. So I don't know what's going on with that photo. It
Hmm.
could be messed with for all I know because it comes from Candace Owens. Somebody probably sent it to her tip line, and that was in, like, the very beginning.
Okay.
of yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to find that out. If you give me a second to see, because it
Yeah.
came. I'm curious now. Yeah, and I am seeing that it looks like it's an ad for Spider-Man that's at the Dairy Queen in the background of this photo. You're right. It does come from it. So what was hmm.
Yeah, so, like, that's why I put that aside until I ever hear something from the defense or the state that he was at a Dairy Queen, because I don't know if that photo's been messed with. I don't know, like, the
Yeah,
source of it.
it's interesting because I mean I thought of it as something that I mean it's not integral to the case because apparently and this is all from Candace I guess it's supposed to take place about 6 hours after the murder like so around 6:30 p.m. So that doesn't really play a big role in the timeline of
He
events.
he could have been at that Dairy
Yeah.
Queen, and then a person who works there sent that to Candace Owens, and
Mhm.
we just haven't heard about it yet in the trial. So it's very possible it could have happened. I'm just saying I haven't heard about it in the actual state or defense
Yeah, I haven't
documents
heard.
or anything.
You're right. I haven't heard about it either from any official source, and so it seems like this it did come from Candace Owens. I think if anything, it is damaging to the defense because he's wearing the same color shirt, the same hat, and at least similar looking sunglasses as to the footage that we saw at UVU in this photo. Um, but let's put that aside because anything from Candace Owens, I'm not gonna trust. Um,
Yeah, and, like, we d c can you tell, like, I kinda remember that photo, but can you tell, like, what kinda store it is? Like, maybe it is Chick-fil-A, and she's calling it Dairy Queen, and then that caused all this confusion because there's a Dairy Queen that is demolished there, and
it doesn't look like Chick Fil A. You see a box. I haven't been to a Dairy Queen. Dairy Queens are not very prevalent where I am in like Los Angeles area. I mean, there's a few, but I haven't gone to one, so I don't know what the boxes look like that you get from there. But I do know Chick Fil A, and it does not look like the type of Chick Fil A box. I can say that much. And it it does seem to have like a Spider Man poster in the background, along with another food ad that you can't really make out. Um, and I don't know why a Spider-Man would be in Dairy Queen, why a Spider-Man poster would be in Dairy Queen unless it's like part of a shopping center. So I'm gonna
I think it's like a movie or something? Isn't it a movie poster?
it's a movie poster for Spider-Man, but still, like usually you don't see movie posters in restaurants, right? Unless
Yeah,
unless it's like a food court or something. So I'm gonna come back to that one. It's not really an integral piece of evidence one way or the other. It would have just been some other data point that puts him around UVU. Um, but we have enough of that anyways. So I'm just going to put a pin in that, come back to it.
okay.
Um, but we haven't seen any of the cell tower location data that hasn't come out yet. And keep in mind that everyone, keeps pointing to the prosecution has the ability to call the parents or call the cell phone site tower data location and present all that if they wanted to at the preliminary hearing. But the defense also has that same power. They could have, if they had an alibi that would have been corroborated by cell tower ping location data, they also could have presented that at the preliminary hearing. So neither side went there. Um, the prosecution, I think, already went well beyond probable cause, so that's explains why they didn't. But the defense also didn't present that, and same thing with the parents as witnesses. Baron Coleman was saying that the parents no longer believe that Tyler did it. He doesn't provide any real source on
Um,
that.
I think that okay, so Candace said that the father pretty early on, she came out and said that the father and mother did not turn him in, and that that's all just made up, which is we know that's not true. And
Right.
then the there are these girls that are have a some kind of content where I'm not for sure if they have a YouTube channel, a TikTok, I don't know what they do, but they have been, going to the area, talking to people, supposedly going to the courthouse, blah, blah, blah. They were there for the preliminary hearing. And they released a recording a while back of like, you don't see anybody. It's just a voice that says, "Oh, I'm the grandpa." And then they're like, "Oh, do you think they did it?" And they're like, "No, no." And then she's like, "We're on his side. We're here for him," talking about
Mm.
Tyler Robinson. And so that's why they say the family doesn't, but we have no idea who that person is.
And it's the grandfather too. I mean, like they're not going to really be in the know. Like the parents. There is in the search warrant or the arrest warrant affidavit testimony, or sorry, statements that he did admit it to his father, Tyler Robinson. But this is coming from Mike Mitchell, who's the family friend, the former sheriff's deputy who arranged the surrender. He's the one that told the sheriff station that he was told by Tyler Robinson's father that he admitted to it. Uh,
But I think Tyler Robinson's father said something because we have access to, like, snippets of their statements, and he said something, too. They have the full interview on recording and the transcript of the parents when they turned him in, they got interrogated. So they put him in a room, then
mhm.
they talked to or questioned the parents when the officials handling the case showed up.
And so the parents did. The dad did say that he admitted to it to them at that. I
Something
didn't
like
come
that.
across
One
that.
one of them did, where it
Mm.
was like the dad mentioned like he was going to, wasn't that from the dad's statement? Where he was
Well,
like, I talked him into like not like he made implications that he did it and that he was gonna off himself, and then we talked him into coming to our house. I'm pretty
so
sure that comes from the dad.
is it from the dad directly or from the dad through Mike Mitchell? Because I came across
The
Mike Mitchell's
the
statements.
the dad. I
The
could
dad?
probably pull it up. Let me see if
Yeah.
I can. Okay, so it says Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle the police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. They discussed the situation. Robinson implied he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. This is all from the father statement. When he asked when asked why he did it, Robinson explained there's too much evil and the guy spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak to a family friend who is a retired deputy. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn. So they're getting all this from speaking to the mother and the father.
Eh, and the source that you're looking at is the probable cause statement.
This is because there were two. So this
Uh-huh.
is what's called information. So there's
It's,
one called probable cause statement, and then there's one called information in the court record. I can send this to you.
yeah. So the information is basically like the complaint.
Once he gets bound over for trial, the information becomes the complaint. Basically, sometimes they alter it. Sorry, I
Well, they're
gotta I
both
gotta plug my
what
phone.
one is called a probable cause affidavit, and
Right.
the other's
Yeah.
called a probable cause statement, but on the document it says information. But these were both filed in the very beginning of the
Okay.
case.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I just didn't upload that document to my workstation. That's interesting. That what I see on my end is from what I have with the other search warrant affidavits is that Tyler's mother did say that Tyler expressed suicidal ideation, um, and that in the public record, the Warrens say that Mike Mitchell tells law enforcement what Tyler Robinson's dad told him. Mike Mitchell is the family friend, former deputy sheriff. So it sounds like what you have is a more direct quote from Tyler Robinson's dad, because it does say also that they were interviewed at the time that they brought him in. And what everything, by the way, just fits in perfectly with the text messages. And I mean, it's all like perfectly corroborated. Nothing here stands alone just on itself. And so whenever somebody kind of pokes a hole in like one or two pieces of evidence, uh, they're not looking at the totality here, because everything comes together very nicely. And so, like, one of his text messages, you know, he talks about turning himself in through a sheriff's deputy friend.
But
And
this is towards the end, so
yeah, so I jumped
he ju
ahead.
he jumps off the roof, hides the rifle, goes to, you said, the Quick Quack car center.
He goes to a nearby shopping center first, and then he does a Google search route that leads him to the Quick Quack car wash. And on that, we have surveillance footage of him and his vehicle. Um, then that is around, I think, about basically 1 p.m. And from that time until about 11 is when the first text message comes in that we have, at least. Um, so what he was doing between 1 p.m. and 11, that we haven't seen much evidence about yet, but I'm sure that we're going to see more cell site tower. His and then, that is in between where he would have been if the Dairy Queen is real, but I'm going to leave that aside for now. But he comes back to the area, and maybe he was actually around the area the whole time, but he's searching. He's basically around the wooded thicket. This is when he's text messaging Lance, starting at
Like,
a
he parks in front of somebody's house too, right?
yeah, and that's when we caught the Nest Cam footage of his vehicle, and he leaves that location at 1:35 a.m., which lines up perfectly with his second Google search, which is starting point, that location, destination point, his home address, and that search happens at 1:33 a.m. So he does the search at 1:33, and then he drives off at 1:35.
Okay, so
So
what is he texting at from 11 till 1:35?
so let me zoom in so I could read this. The first text is 11 p.m. Tyler to Lance, drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard. And then Lance says, "What? You're joking, right?" And then Tyler tried to delete that. So I'm not sure if that was like a automatic text message that was sent, or like how he tried to delete that, or
So when he says, look, when the automatic message goes out, look under my keyboard, Tyler goes and looks under his keyboard and sees the note, and that's why he texts back what?
right,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, you mean Lance looks under the keyboard,
Or yeah, Lance looks at the keyboard
and
or he's like, "What? What is, are you serious?" Isn't that what he says? Something like that?
yeah, you're joking, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, which yeah, again, I mean, it only really makes sense if you're talking about that letter. And thankfully for us, Lance took a picture of that letter, which is how we have it. Because when Tyler Robinson goes back later on the next morning, he burns it, and we have just the burn fragment. But Lance photographed it. So that's another thing I was thinking, is they could bring a handwriting expert in if they really want to kick a dead horse and just show that it matches Tyler's handwriting. the text messages. So fuck, I tried to delete that. And this is all back and forth, like within a few minutes. Lance, yeah, what's going on? Tyler, I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Tyler, it shouldn't be long until I come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. I had hoped to keep the secret till I died of old age. Lance, you weren't the one who did it, right? Tyler, I am. I'm sorry. Lance, I thought they caught the person. Tyler, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. Tyler, I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. Tyler, it's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Lance, why? Do you want me to read all of it? Because I don't
Yeah,
mind.
sure.
Yeah, okay. Um, Lance, why? Tyler, I don't know. Why did I do it? Lance, yeah. Tyler, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. Tyler, if I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. We'll update you by midnight. Lance, all right. Stay safe.
Okay, so this is crazy. Let's pause there for a second
Yeah.
because he is hanging out around the area where the rifle he thinks it might still be because they never reported it on the news. And I think that's why we had it was leaked probably by officials. They do that kind of stuff, they don't want to officially put it out, so they'll leak it to the New York Post or whatever it was. And it was a weird photo of just like it in a box with like, in a weird position with a light shining and like a camera. It wasn't a very good picture. The angle's weird, which kind of makes the gun look weird. And I bet they were told they found the gun like that day. I bet they were told later, go out there, the ATF or whatever, and pull that gun out and like lift open that box and take a picture of it so we can leak it to the that or they just did it on their own because there were ATF agents leaking stuff to Steven Crowder when all
Mhm.
this was going down. Do you remember that? Like
I don't remember.
Steven Crowder, before Tyler Robinson was found and everything, Steven Crowder, for some reason, was getting like things leaked to him from the ATF.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and watch those.
Yeah, it was just like one of those weird things. So that maybe they did it on their own or whatever, but then, so Tyler doesn't know that they found the gun until the next morning. So he's hanging out around this location,
Right.
which is, and of course they're not going to say they found the gun because somebody could come back.
Right.
But what's so weird is that they weren't watching for somebody to come back. Because
Yeah.
here's this guy just kinda, like, hanging out, driving back and forth, parking here, and then I think, like, at one point, he actually gets out to go to the spot, and he's like, "Dang, it's not here, maybe I'm in the wrong spot," and I think he was, like, actually on foot and that like, looking for it, and there should have been police officers.
Right. Well, it does come up in his text messages where he's like, "Damn, I'm not seeing it. I don't know if I'm in the right spot." And so I'm like wondering, is he actually looking? I mean, is he actually out and about looking around?
That's what it
Uh,
sounds like to me, like, he
and they
got
didn't
to the
have patrol people there, waiting to to catch the person. That
At,
is,
like, some location they did because he tried to go in one way, and
yeah.
he got stopped, and they said you couldn't come in, and so and then they ran his, like, plate or got a partial plate or something just, out of duty, like, just checking it, but there should have been somebody watching for him to come back to that location, so it's insane to me that he could just drive around, you know,
Well,
go
I
back to
think
his spot.
also that there's different parts, there's different entrance ways, and there's probably this is probably a high traffic area with students and stuff, so they probably were not checking every single vehicle very vociferously
But,
at this
like,
point.
not at 12 o'clock at night and one
Yeah,
o'clock in the morning.
yeah. No, I'm curious. There's a lot of stuff that we have yet to see. I'm really curious. I think that with the Nest Cam, he like is on the other side of the wooded thicket, kind of a neighborhood that's on the other side. So he's
Yeah, he's trying
nearby.
to he's trying to access it from a different way because he couldn't get in where the
Right.
other guy was, the other
Right.
officer. But it's just shocking to me that
Yeah.
this happens with Charlie Kirk and we don't know who it is and we're looking for them, yet this guy who did it is just like
Yeah.
driving on the
Yeah.
road trying to get back to the gun. And so I feel like that's just I've always found that shocking. I found that shocking and I found the whoever was the sheriffs or the local police said they were gonna put somebody on the roof and then they didn't. Like, they said, "We
Yeah.
got you covered" to Dan Flood or whoever it was, and then they didn't do it. And no
Mhm.
one ever talks about that, no one ever brings it up. It's like, isn't that weird? Like, why wouldn't they actually and, they coulda just been like, "Who cares? Nothing's gonna happen." I'm not saying there's something nefarious, I'm just
Yeah.
saying they said
Some
they were going
negligence.
yeah, they said they were going to do it, and then they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, these are good questions. I'm sure that, there's a lot of negligence to go around in situations like this. People make mistakes all the time. So, yeah,
okay,
there are,
so he's saying if I could so where were we at the text messages?
yeah. So the last one, this is all between 11 and 11:05. So this is like quick back and forths. Um, if if I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. So he thought. We'll update you by midnight. All right, stay safe. And then Tyler goes, or Lance goes, "How long have you been planning this?" Tyler's response is a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there's a squad car parked right by it. 3 hours ago, there was an officer with a canine walking nearby the area, hoping that Pooch has a bad sniffer. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. Needless to say, I'm gonna be late coming home, my B. Lance, just stay safe. Tyler, I will. Tyler, I'm more worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back my grandpa's rifle. He's far scarier than any Fed, not gonna lie. Uh, Tyler, guess I'm just sitting in my car watching reels for another hour. Hope this guy fucks off. Uh, Lance, are you okay still? Tyler, yeah. Lance, what are you gonna do? Tyler, I don't really know. Closest gas station is like 20 minutes away. I might go there. I don't know. Gonna see if the road closer to campus is open so I can drive past and check shit out. Getting worried. Hard to know for sure, but I'm not finding my rifle. Could be in the wrong spot. So this is way probably around the time because this is at 11:13, at least according to these timestamps. And I got these off the photographs that we saw. um Lance, do you think they found it? Tyler, to know they haven't published anything if they have. So here's another thing I think we're gonna see is his internet search on his phone because it seems like he was following the news a lot, so that just to help kind of line things up.
Yeah, he knew that they had, arrested the guy who jumped up and was like, "Blah," and then, like, they searched another guy who looked like him, so he was, like, following and so that'll be all in his phone, in his search.
Right.
That Celebrate pools, all that stuff, like, there people don't realize, like, it get this the forensic tools that they have will say if when you shut your screen off, when you unplug, like,
Yeah.
headphones from your jack, there's all these codes for that inside your phone that they extract with the data, and that's one of the things that Karen Reed's defense team was honing in on because he something I don't know if I'm recalling this exactly right, but something about when she 'cause she they have her Wi-Fi record of, like, when she pulled into her house, the time when her
Oh
phone
yeah.
connected to Wi-Fi. So, she had to have already been on her way home and getting close to the home when his screen was turned off and on, like, you know how you do with your thumb?
Hmm.
which would imply he was still alive, you know, because the whatever happened to him in that house or in the garage, which we think was an accident of some kind, like there was either a scuffle, like he got in an argument with somebody, or and fell back, like the dog came at him and then he fell backward and hit his head on this the cement step in the garage, or he was fighting and fell back and he was fighting with some, it was either like he just the dog attacked him and he fell back and no, and then people walked in and saw him laying there in the garage,
Hmm.
or that he got in a fight with somebody who then like pushed him or hit him, or the dog came at him because of the fight and then he fell back, because the injuries around his eyes wasn't even from being punched over and over, it was from the horrible impact of the head injury that then concussed the eyes forward that do the thing, and it broke the little tiny bones inside there, and then the brain swelled, and that also causes that bruising around the eyes and breaking, because he laid there with his brain swelling and dying, you know what I mean?
Wow,
So,
that's interesting.
uh, yeah, so that cell phone data though was very important in this insanely complex case, because they had the shutting off of the phone on
Yeah,
your little
yeah,
screen shut off. So they pull all that stuff with these crazy forensic tools, which is super fascinating. So,
yeah. And I've seen it when I was working at a district attorney's office, and we got a phone, and the phone data just pulled off like just tons and tons of pages of data. And when you delete text messages, all it does on the data just says deleted, and then it says the text message. So you're really not deleting it. You have to scrub your phone, like you have to like run out of memory for it to actually be deleted, or maybe use a special app. I don't know, but it will even say if it's deleted. So that's probably how he thought he was going to get away with this. Most people don't know that. Uh, if you really have to send something incriminating or tell something incriminating, you should probably just pick up the phone and call, because then somebody would actually have to be listening in on that call or recording it to get it. But text messaging is just like the worst way to go, because it's saved in your phone, it's saved on their phone. So he did not do a good job. Tyler did not do a good job of covering his tracks. But, the conspiracy theorists will say, all of this could have been forged or planted. But my kind of counter to that is there's certain messages that he sends that really only he could have known. For example, how he chose to surrender through a deputy sheriff's friend. If he was being framed, how would they know that that's the way he's
oh,
choosing to
because
surrender?
what they're gonna say is that they sat there for a couple of days and they put this whole story together, and they put so then they mapped it all out, and then they made the cell phone data say it, they made the text messages say it, and that's why they think that that it being so collaborated across all aspects of it caused that to be suspicious. Like they just sat there, they put the plan together, and then they made the data say it all.
Right. Yeah. Except then they effed up when it came to planting the right type of gun, is what they say. Like what
I know.
it's kind of inconsistent that they do all this crazy, sophisticated, like perfectly executed thing, but they planted the wrong type of gun.
And you wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to get the pinging, the Google data search, uh, map searches, the pinging on Lance's phone when the messages come in. I mean, you just wouldn't be able to do that and like make it look legit and give it to a defense attorney and then not be like, um, this isn't like real,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I know.
um,
It's crazy. I mean, I get, if we're dealing in the realm of theoretical possibilities, then yeah, anything's theoretically possible in theory. But if we hold our, criminal justice system to what's possible without any sort of evidence to support it, then really we would never convict anybody of any crime. So it's just
oh, the
it's
standard that these people have
Yeah.
never convict, like, the state would never convict a single
Right.
person of
Right.
murder ever again because they'd be like, "Oh, look, we have security footage of him, walking outside the house before the woman we found in the house was, offed brutally, and then we, found a piece of his hair next to her and a shoe print of his," and then they'd be like, "But, like, you can't clearly see that's him, and we don't know if you put that shoe in there and did the thing and put his hair there, so, like, no one can ever really know for sure." And it's like, "You guys, like, come on," like, like, I poor Gary, I have no idea how he does this, but, like, he'll be, like, showing them a video, and he's like, "Doesn't that look like a gun with a towel hanging sorta down?" And they're like, "No way, that doesn't look like a towel. What do you mean a towel? That's like a backpack." And he's
Yeah,
like,
I know.
"Why would it?" They found the gun with a towel, and then you see, like, a rigid object, like, wrapped in a floppy, dark thing, like, at the
Right.
end, it's floppy because the towel is longer than the way he has it wrapped around the rifle, and he's running away from where somebody was just shot, but there's no way to, like, know that that was a gun. That's clearly a backpack, it's like,
Right. Yeah, I know. And like, what was I gonna say? It's for the amount of people that would have to be involved, like from every agency and just and TPUSA and UVU campus police and sheriffs and the Lance Twigs and all these, and that's more plausible in these people's mind than just like Tyler Robinson did this, the way that it's being presented. If they were smart, they would at least say like Tyler Robinson is guilty, but he was he was being blackmailed to do it or something like that. Because that would at least you would overcome the reason why there's so much evidence pointing to Tyler Robinson.
I
But
mean, that's what I like, before they even found the dude, like, I remember thinking, like, because normally when you're thinking about a state actor being involved, it would be they do seem, and this has come out, like Ken Silva, who I've interviewed on this channel, and he wrote a book, called about the Butler assassinations, but before the Butler assassinations, like, his career as a journalist is looking into all the times that the state, like, randomly gets people to, they'll join, like, a group of
Mhm,
guys, and there's, like, 2 guys that are mentally retarded, basically, or very low IQ, and then,
mhm,
like, 12 federal agents, right? And they're,
yeah,
like, egging this person on to get them to do something, and they catch them in the crime or whatever, and then they convict them. This happens all the time, even up to this day, and, uh so you're in my brain, that's what I'm thinking of when I think of, like, a state actor involved was in a Discord chat, and they were rallying up all these queer, furry groups that are in Utah or whatever, and getting them, like, not necessarily, like, to do this thing, but, like, making them become extreme so they can catch them doing something.
right,
And then they would want to obviously hide that because then when the person does something and they don't catch them before they do it, then they're
right,
like they don't wanna have any, like, show that they were involved. And
right.
so that is what my mind went to when I was thinking of this first, it's like
Well, that's
he was
what happened
he
with the
could
Whitmer kidnapping, right?
yeah, there were just these guys that were low IQ, militia type dudes or whatever, I don't and, like, they they got, like, these federal agents, there were, like, 3 guys and, like, literally 12 federal agents that,
Mhm,
like, were part of this militia group, and
mhm,
they were just you could tell they were egging and it's not they did this to some homeless guy in Florida recently, where they got, like, a tip from somebody that there was, like, something weird that might have been a bomb in a, uh storage unit, right? So then they go there and, like, there wasn't really that there, but then they start following this guy's homeless. They're, like, connecting with him and all this stuff, and then they eventually realize he's too low IQ to make a bomb, so then they make the bomb for him, the
mhm,
federal agents, and give
mhm.
it to him, and then they arrest him, and now he's going to jail forever. You know what I mean? Because these federal agents, so they do this kind of stuff. Why? I don't get it why they do it all the time. Like, this is part of the conspiracy around the Oklahoma City bombing, which is actually a thing that throughout my years of conspiracy, I have not turned, there's nothing about that that I've come out and realized was all messed up, telling of to me. That actually there was all kinds of crazy stuff going on that involved federal agents and CIA agents and with the Nazi groups and rallying them all up. And just, there was all this stuff going on before. And then there was a giant cover up afterwards. They killed some guy. Federal agents beat to death a guy who had nothing to do with any of it and then gave the body back to the family and just said I forget what they told them, but like they tortured this guy in federal jail. They arrested a guy they thought could be Jane Doe number 2 on the border, and then they like tortured him to death and killed him. So the Oklahoma City bombing is crazy. And so when I think of a conspiracy type with a situation like this, it's not that they planned all this stuff and Tyler Robinson really didn't do it and somebody else did it. It would be they were egging him on to do something extreme, and then they didn't catch him before he did something extreme.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no,
Like,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that and we haven't seen that yet,
yeah,
but that's totally that's
there's no evidence of it.
that's
But I'm saying, like,
totally plausible.
in the early days, like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I was thinking that's probably what it could have been, and, like, there was some talk about this armed queer group and that they were
Right.
involved in, like, these furry circles, and if they were on Discord, there are, like, people who egg people on in Discord servers and stuff, so that's what I was thinking. My mind never went to Israel and, the
Yeah.
security team and all this stuff.
Let me just say about the whole Israel thing, and this isn't just because I'm Jewish or Israeli. I just objectively speaking, it would be really stupid of Israel to do something like this, especially in this way. Um, the
Well,
amount
you're not Israeli, you're American, right?
I'm American. I have family in Israel. My dad grew up in Israel, so Israeli, but I'm American. 100% American. So I don't want to give any.
I just wanted to, like,
Yeah,
make sure that was clear.
yeah. America is my home country and my loyalty, but I do have family there. But in any case, it would be very stupid of Israel to do something like this. To risk the blowback that it would have potentially with Israel's greatest ally, really its only ally, especially like. And the only thing that people can point to is that Charlie Kirk's views on Israel were evolving, but it's like all of his public pronouncements were pretty pro-Israel. Maybe he was evolving, but you think Israel would like just within 2 days be like, "Oh, we're going to take out one of the most pro-Israel people because his views are evolving slightly"? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, his views there is, like, just a behavioral pattern in some Jewish people, like, I hate it when people say "the Jews," right? There is, like, some Jews that tend to be older and in politics, that their, behavioral pattern, if anybody brings up, like, the slightest criticism of Israel or, like, Jews in politics or, like, whatever, or, like, AIPAC or whatever, that they immediately go to, "That person is an anti-Semite, blah, 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 blah," and that's what they had kinda started doing to and not all Jews. One
Mhm.
specific, like, Jews are not a like, the Jewish person is just a regular person, and they're not a monolith, so I have Jews that I listen to who don't believe Israel should even, like, exist. They're, like, against it, like, they're
Mhm.
rabbis that are like, "This caused conflict for all of us and identity crises," and then we're like, "Are we really the citizens of the state we live?" And, like, so they have issues with it. Then I
Yeah.
listen to Jews who are Zionists or whatever you would call it, that, like, give their reasons why they believe the way they do, and all through all different ways of thinking. But, like, sometimes these certain Jewish people who are in politics and who are donors and, are conservatives, they get really, like, just sort of like over the like at the slightest criticism, they kind of have like an overblown reaction, which then is used against them. Like, you know what I mean? It makes
Yes.
people then get more offended at them for then getting offended at them. And that was starting to happen to Charlie Kirk. It had happened to lots of other people.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is it's just this one specific group of politically active Jewish Americans. They are Americans. They have a right to believe whatever they want in politics, donate their money to whoever they want in politics, right? So people make a big deal about that. And it's like, they act like they're not Americans or something. They'll be like, "Oh, these Jewish donors," and it's like, yeah, they can donate to whoever they want. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
If you want to have more of a say in politics, then you find some money and some billionaires for your cause and donate to whoever you want, and that's allowed, right?
Right.
So
No,
so
but
there is this group that will like kind of get really offensive at just the slightest thing, and then that makes more blowback on all the Jewish population. You know what I
I
mean?
agree.
Because then they get put into that spot. And that seems like what was happening to Charlie, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't have worked it out. He was a really like diplomatic person. He would have worked it out with those Jewish donors. He was super concerned about the changing tide that has really turned against just Jews in general, like of all kinds. Jews are being
Right.
completely demonized like everywhere. He was really concerned about that. He was writing Bibi Netanyahu saying, and this is a joke that I make like and have for a long time. It's like they say Jews are good at everything and they're controlling the world, but they're like terrible at PR.
Yeah,
Like
Israel's got the worst PR. I have some advice for Israeli PR. It's really bad.
right.
Yeah.
And so that's what Charlie was trying to also do.
Right.
And then after Charlie died, then Netanyahu, like, reacted to the letter he had just got, and he comes and he starts talking about, like, "Oh, we gotta have a better presence on these, social medias, and it's like a new we gotta take over this landscape because of what's going." And then that gets used against him because then
Right.
people play clips of him, but really, like and that's what I mean, like, they just don't say things very well. And then
Yeah.
people have endless clips to be like, "See the Jews," and it's so funny because they like, the people against the Jews will be like, "They have, like, world Jewry that's organized," and I'm like, "What? No, they don't," and then I go look that they have a conference called World Organized Jewry that they
Yeah.
meet and it's like, "Why is your conference called that?" Like,
Right.
"Why?" Like
Well, I mean, there's the old joke of like two Jews, three opinions. You have, I mean, most Jews are still of the left, and I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom has Trump derangement syndrome. And I think a lot of Jews do. And so they're not really doing this anymore with Trump because it's so obvious that Trump has really been good to Israel and Jews and everybody. But they at first there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's anti-Semitic" because of just maybe one obnoxious remark he made here or there. And I agree. It's like don't jump on the anti-Semite label. There's enough real anti-Semites that you don't call somebody an anti-Semite just because they disagree, or they say one offhand remark that's we don't like or is problematic. So Charlie Kirk, yeah, I mean, and it sounds like he was blowing off
And
state.
also, I
Yeah,
wanna say, like, you want to be treated like everybody else in society, so you kinda want people who are gonna mock you or call you out sometimes or have how comedians will make fun of different races of people and different groups of people in a fun comedic way, and then everybody gets to laugh together? You
yeah,
want that as a group to be able to fit into society, you need to have a little bit of that thing. I just think the problem with Jews, especially the older ones, is they have a lot of trauma that's generational based because people constantly turn on them and all throughout history and like crazy stuff
yeah.
happens. So there is a generational trauma like that they then react badly to if they kind of suspect that it's happening.
Well, there's also like there's some hypersensitivity in certain ways because sometimes like I can sense anti-Semitism where non-Jews might not see it, but like I think it's overblown with some people, but like for example, Tucker Carlson, I really like he's he's dangerous now, and he doesn't come out and just say I hate Jews. But the way that he relentlessly focuses on Israel and everything it does is just like the worst thing ever, and then he gives a pass to everything else. That's
Well,
like a
he's
form of
he's he's
anti-Semitism.
doing it in a way that's imprinting that into the listener's brain. So
Yeah,
he doesn't have to come right out and say it because they're getting the hint.
yeah.
You know what I
It,
mean? So, yeah.
like anti-Semitism, sometimes it's not, so crude, like I hate Jews. Jews are so bad. Sometimes it's like when there's a relentless focus on everything Israel does, but there's nothing else in the world that's bad. That I think is like indicative, maybe not of an outright overt anti-Semitism, but it still exists. So we are hypersensitive about it. But yeah, anybody that would call Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite, maybe because he just said something that we didn't like, that's not the right way to do it. And the same thing when it came to Trump. He's probably said some obnoxious things, but you gotta look at the person as a whole. Um, yeah. So I mean, I agree with everything you said. We do sometimes
Also,
fit into that
you don't
stereotype.
have you're allowed to dislike people. So if you don't like black people, you're allowed to dislike black people and be like, I don't really like black people or whatever, or I don't really like Jews. That is allowed. It's just like when you make it political, when you make it like a mission to turn other people, you know what I mean? Like there's different levels to stuff. So like people have a right to not like people, but it's like you shouldn't then go forth and try to get other people to dislike them for whatever weird reasons you do or whatever, and influence people in that way, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Um, but back to like the main thing is that like I still think it's just absurd to think that Israel would do that to like an American commentator, even if Charlie was like turning on Israel, and I don't think he was really turning, but
And if he was, and they for whatever reason this would be bad for them, they would just, do it in a way that he's running, he's jogging, and he has a heart attack, or he, you know, is
yeah,
poisoned, or yes, they wouldn't do it like that with the
yeah,
millions of cameras and like all this
right,
extreme like they and how would the Israeli government have access to all the stuff that we use in court? Like they're not in charge of the state investigation. So when the guys go to Tyler Robinson's house and they find targets in the house and all these
right,
bullets and they find a letter, I mean, how would Israel have the ability to do any of that
right.
stuff? Like,
Yeah, it would have to be so many hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved in this cover up and conspiracy. I mean, and that's like Baron Coleman basically lays it out that way. It's the medical examiners, it's the surgeon, it's TPUSA, it's Erica Kirk, it's the security team, it's the sheriffs, it's the ATF. Everybody's involved. It's like, really, you're gonna imagine that all these hundreds of people, thousands
how could
maybe,
they the other thing is there's
without
no possible way they could plan this all because the text message where Charlie is venting about donors who he will probably make up with, like, the next day. He's just venting in a public or private group chat, by the way. So
yeah.
while we're on like group chats, this is not public. He's not saying this stuff publicly. He's just venting to his friends in a group chat. Um, that's not enough. That was, like, 2 days
I
before this
know
event happened,
that's what was so ridiculous about it. Is
so they
like,
have to line up the schedule of the surgeon that's going to be there that
yeah,
day, opposed to, like, another surgeon, and, like, they have to get the medical examiner on board because they don't have, like, just tons of medical examiners in a state, like, there's very few, and so they would have to talk to that person, get them on board, hopefully, and they don't
right.
come out and say, "They're gonna kill Charlie." I mean, like, they
And
would have
what's
to plan it in advance, and then somebody could come out and say they're going to kill Charlie Kirk, like,
right, and think about the risk. You're telling all these people, and what's the chances that one of them is going to spill the beans and provide some evidence, and boom, that it completely backfired. I mean, just even as like a purely Machiavellian, selfish Israeli point of view, if you're weighing the risk versus the reward of doing something like this, who's stupid enough to think that the Mossad is like, yeah, let's risk losing, the evangelical Christians who are basically the only people that still support Israel in the world. Let's risk them uh to kill Charlie because and by the way, if he's changing his views on Israel, it's possible that he could change his views back again. It's like if he's it's not like, oh, he's 100% now, going the
Yeah,
100.
all they
So
would
it's so
have to do
stupid.
is tell the Jewish donors to chill the F out.
Exactly.
And
It's
so
so
that he doesn't change not on our side, and that would be a million times easier than but then if you try to bring that up, then they're just gonna say, "But then he had somehow massive control over our government's military to keep them from going to Iran," which is literally insanity. Like, our g just okay, so, like, I'm not one of these people who believes that Israel has in any way any possible control over who our government, like, bombs, who they go to war with, anything like that, and to think that is the most, to me, low IQ, ridiculous thing ever. If anything, we're controlling Israel as a proxy. It
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, Israel's not controlling us. If anything, we have set them up as a proxy to do our dirty work in the Middle East and then get blamed for it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, uh so to imagine that the greatest superpower in the world is just, like, listening to this small population, this little country, is absolutely ridiculous, and then not only that, but they have had plans. The presidents don't, like, make these decisions. Now, I don't know about the Iran thing, maybe Donald Trump did, but normally how it's went over the period of time is that there are these plans that are set in place militarily
Yeah.
for, like, years and years and years of what they wanna do, like, the Path to Persia, the paper written in 2009 by
Yeah.
our Pentagon and our military, put all this into plan, like, first we're gonna go in Afghanistan, then we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, we're gonna mess with Syria. I mean, it's all written down, and then we're gonna go to Iran in this Path to Persia thing. So and that's why presidents, like, they'll always say, like, "Oh, I'm not gonna go into more wars," but then they always do because this is already a thing that's been set out and planned. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
a planning of what we're gonna do for our security, for this and that, whatever the reasons are, you know? And so to think that Israel has control over it is, like, insane, and then to think that Charlie Kirk,
would
just a citizen in America that's, like, a commentator, has the ability to keep, the American military from going to war with Iran is, like,
right. It's
crazy.
dumb. Yeah, and then I mean, like, just look at it from Jew's point of view. Is it's we kind of got screwed twice because Charlie Kirk was really one of the best advocates for Israel and Jews on the, especially amongst young people, which are so anti-Israel now. And so on the same day that we lost somebody that was really a friend, even if he disagreed, even if he was slightly turning away on certain things, I think his heart was still like he called Jew hate brain rot, you know? And so we lost somebody that was
Oh,
really a
he
friend.
would have never have been a Jew
Yeah,
hater, like, he would have never have done that. I think he might have
right.
just been like, "Y'all need to chill on, like, some things, you're, like, kinda losing people and, like, don't tell people
Right.
what they can and can't do," or whatever. Um, but
So we got screwed doubly over because we lost him, who was like really such a good friend, and then now we're accused of being the ones that killed him on top of it. So it was like the worst backfire ever if it was actually planned by us. And again, if it turns out that's the way it happened, I would be like disgusted with Israel for doing it.
and I
It
couldn't
was
even imagine being a Jewish person and, like, say, like, I watched Charlie Kirk since he started, so I followed his career, so when he was killed, I was, like, extremely devastated. Like, I don't think I showered for, like, a little while after because I was
wow.
in, like, a daze, and then I realized, "Oh my gosh, I need to, like, clean myself or whatever because I kinda, like, snapped to or whatever, but I was in a daze, I would just start crying, like, I was just scrolling Twitter and I saw it, like, when it happened, so I saw the video.
Yeah.
And it was, like, really messed up, and I was not okay for a while afterwards. So I couldn't imagine being Jewish and also loving Charlie, and then this happening, which is super traumatic, and then becoming blamed for it,
Yeah.
which
It's
is also
really
what happened to Erica Kirk. So you guys are
yeah.
in, like, sort of the same.
Well, and I say there seems to be a really like almost a perfect circle overlap between people that hate Erica Kirk and people that hate Jews. It's like it's kind of bizarre to me because I know that there's a lot of people that hate Jews. That's always been around. but I've never seen anyone go after a grieving widow the way that Erica Kirk has been relentlessly like targeted, and they all seem to also hate Jews, and it's just a weird kind of overlap. And I'm glad to be on the side of the grieving widow. I'll take that side any day.
Yeah.
Um, so it's, but yeah, I
And then
mean,
also, like, Bibi Netanyahu, which I'm not, like, the biggest fan of or whatever, but
yeah,
he was friends with Charlie, so he was also, like, affected by his death, I imagine, and then he gets also blamed, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
then, like, every little bit of his reaction afterwards gets scrutinized and,
yeah,
taken out of context and stuff like that, and so it's just really just like, it's almost, like, monstrous, you know what I mean? Like, just the most evilest thing I could
yeah,
possibly imagine, like, people
yeah,
doing. It's
yeah. And same thing with like the TPUSA accusations against like Andrew Colvett and Blake Neff. I mentioned this in live yesterday, I think, which is that the conspiracy theories against them is that they're part of the cover up, but they're doing it for the money, right? That's the conspiracy for them. Why, what other reason is there? The conspiracy theory against Israel is that Charlie was turning, but the conspiracy theory against TPUSA is they're doing it for money. And I'm just like, what?
is the military oh my gosh, I just realized how they're piecing all this together, and the military's reason for doing it was Iran. So
I,
the military industrial complex wanted him gone because he was going to prevent them from going to war with Iran. The Jews wanted him gone because he was turning against them, and then that would make the public of the United States and the like you called the evangelists, turn against Israel because Charlie had their ear and all that stuff. Then, the TPUSA, Erica Kirk and the staffs, they wanted him gone for the money.
right.
So
That's the theory.
I'm seeing how they're piecing like I when you laid it out like that, it just like puzzle pieces fell in my brain. This is the motive for everybody that they're blaming.
Yeah.
Um,
And to imagine that they would cover up the murder of a friend and mentor, and have to, basically carry that with them until the day they die, for money. It's like how the only type of person that could believe that that's plausible, I think, is the type of person that they themselves could imagine themselves doing it for money. You
yeah,
know what
and
I
they
mean?
say
It's
that about Erica,
projection.
like, "Oh, she gained all this stuff from his death, like, she got donated money for the kids or something," like, I can't remember what it was, and then they got in donations which go to the company, not her, but her husband would have made exponential amount of money
Yes.
during the time he was alive that she would have benefited from, it would have been saved, there would have been you know, security that a woman gets married to a person and the amount of income he could make in his lifetime benefits her greatly. And then he would have also been president one day, which means she would have been first lady. So you're like saying she's her entire life that she possibly imagined with him, as far as like his income, what they build together, what she would have as her portion of that, uh, and then also his future status in the world that she's throwing all that away for like a couple mil from a life insurance policy or whatever.
Right. And like, yeah, I mean, and she probably has enough money as it is, and she's gonna have to live with that the rest of her life, and live, you know, with the lie. It's just kind of stupid. That's why I said, watching Baron Coleman on Julian Dory, I felt like it's just kind of stupid. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to describe it. It's not like it's not just skeptical, it's stupid. It's a stupid idea. And what was the other thing? So what Julian said to Baron is like, and he admitted this. I don't think he realized he was admitting this, but he basically said the reason he's questioning the whole narrative is that when he saw Erica Kirk the next day, he just had a feeling in his stomach. He had a gut feeling that something wasn't right. And basically that's the whole reason for all the skepticism. And I don't give a shit about gut feelings. Like, people have gut feelings that are wrong every day, and they just kind of ignore it. It's only when they're right that it seems significant. But
Yeah, and also like what did she do? I still don't understand, like, because 'cause they're like, "She's just weird," and it's like, "Why? What is weird? What are you
Yeah.
talking about?" So, because she was, like, on her husband's casket or whatever and then crying, people do that.
Yeah.
People, like, do that, and then she wanted there's this weird thing because I made a video on, uh, famous widows whose husbands were assassinated in history, right? And so
Hmm.
we have like, I looked at MLK's wife, Coretta, and Jackie Kennedy. They all said very similar things. They wanted them to see what they had done. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, there's something innate in the wife when her husband gets killed publicly where she wants everyone to see it. In the past, we didn't have social media, so they carried the casket around the country,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, so that's not actually weird, and then there are people who do touch their loved ones when they die, some people don't. Like, some people are I probably wouldn't, but I don't know because I've never lost, like, a child or a husband or something, but, like, people touch the body, that's not weird. Then they were upset that she was at, like, a in the public, like, speaking shortly after he died. Well, MLK's wife was at a workers what is it called when they strike? A worker striking event, like, 4 or 5 days after her husband died because she wanted to continue his legacy, and
Yeah.
um, so I think also the grieving person doesn't wanna think about it, so they throw themselves into their husband's, like, movement if they have one. JFK didn't have a movement, so Jackie was sort of left on her own in her house where she became, like, a drunk and became very depressed. Now, if she had a movement to push herself forward, she probably would have done that, but she also said really weird, creepy stuff in the days after he was killed. She wore the blood because she wanted them to see the blood. She planned his whole funeral and wanted it to be exactly like Abraham Lincoln's for some reason with the eternal and she wanted the eternal flame going, which is what happened. And then she started talking about Camelot, and there was this mythology she developed right after his death about Camelot and how wonderful that she made this mythology around John F. Kennedy.
Hmm.
Then she also, like, talked about the inside of his brain and how beautiful it looked and, like, all this stuff because she was, like, completely out of it when reporters were talking to her. So she said some really weird stuff that today would be, like,
Yeah.
spread
If
everywhere
Erica
and,
said
like,
it. Yeah.
completely so I just when they say she acted weird or they had a gut feeling that she was weird, it's like, "No, she's not being weird." Sh First of all, I doubt she has media training. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, so, when you watch people have media training all the time on TV, and then you see someone who doesn't, they are going to look weird, different to
Yeah.
you because they don't have media training, and then also the sparkly pant outfit, remember how they were all obsessed with that? So she told Andrew Wilson's wife that 'cause she asked her about that. And she said, "Well, I'd lost when I showed up to that event, they had 5 outfits for me backstage, and I'd lost so much weight that that was the only one that fit, so I didn't have any time, so I'm like, I guess I'm going with this one." So now she's wearing this
But
ridiculous sparkling suit, and it's like,
I
there's a reason for it. You're being ungracious, you're being, like, you know what I mean, not kind and caring and gracious to somebody whose husband just died, like, we have no idea why she wore the sparkly suit, you know?
Yeah, those are all good points, and it's just judgmental. First off,
Yeah.
everybody grieves differently. This just and I, if you think that it was distasteful to come out in the sparkly suit and pyrotechnics, okay, that's your choice. I disagree. I think that she was trying to put up a strong face. She's trying to show that Tyler Robinson didn't win. They're going through with what TPUSA, what her husband wanted to go through with, and he was into pyrotechnics, and so they weren't going to cancel it. They weren't going to be this dreary organization that's just depressed now. She wanted to put on that strong face. That's the impression I got. But even if you thought it was distasteful, who cares? That doesn't mean anything, that Tyler Robinson is innocent. It just is so far removed from anything that's relevant. That's my take. But
Yeah.
not finding my rifle, could be in the wrong spot. Lance asked, "Do you think they found it?" Tyler said, "Don't know. They haven't published anything if they have." Lance, why did you leave it behind anyway or originally? Also, does it have a serial number? Tyler, I don't know.
Is it not crazy that Tyler's just, he just told him he killed Charlie Kirk and Tyler's just like, "Oh,
Yeah,
did you?" I mean, like,
Lance is reacting pretty nonchalantly. I agree. It's almost like, uh, but I mean, when you're dealing with text messages, it often doesn't. You know how it is when you try and text a joke and it's like it loses all meaning and the person thinks you're being serious. So I'm not saying that this is a joke, but I'm saying that like maybe there's more gravity behind. I don't know, but it does seem like it's pretty nonchalant. It almost seems
he
like
might
he's
have been, like, sitting there thinking and then had a question and then thinking and then had a question, but it just seems so calm. It's like, you
yeah.
know,
Well, and this is
he
all
certainly didn't call the police, which, you know.
right, right.
So this is still 11:15. So all the text messages have been from 11 to 11:15. Um, Tyler says, I don't know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. Um, I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. So that gets to what you were saying before about, um,
The
why he didn't,
ability.
yeah, why he didn't bring it
Oh.
with him at first. Lance, was your change of clothes there, or was that also gone? Or did you bring those with you originally? Any way you could replace the gun, or would he notice? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel, 4-digit serial. Hopefully, some dead guy who gave it to Grandpa.
Right, because he would have put everything in his backpack. That's why he had the backpack. So that's where he had the towel. That's where he had his change of clothes. So when he changed his clothes, he put it all back in the backpack and then he disposed of it somewhere because the family friend says that he asked Tyler about the clothes when they were turning themselves in, and Tyler said he disposed of them.
That's that was a question I had, was what happened with the clothes, because I didn't see anything about that in any of the evidence. So he threw it in a dumpster or something like that.
That's probably in the document that I have that you haven't seen, so I will definitely, when we're done with this, I will send that to you, a
Okay.
link to you to that.
Um, then he says, "Remember how I was engraving bullets? The messages are mostly a big meme," which I think that's a big text message right there, because it's referencing something that he did at the apartment, which they found evidence for at the apartment, and which is corroborated by Lance Twig's testimony, which is the engraving, which is not something usual that people do. And he had the tool that is able to do it that had his DNA on it. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really sucks.
So he's searching for it, can't find the spot, like, he thinks maybe he's not in the right spot. Now he's like, "Okay, I can't find it, I've gotta get out of here." And
Yeah,
so he's just gonna, like, give up and go home at this point.
right. And this is when I don't see timestamps on the next bunch of text messages. Um, but I'm sure we'll get that. Um, Lance asks, "Do you need it for hunting?" Tyler says, "No, my dad wanted to use a higher caliber rifle for the rifle hunt." Judging
Okay,
from
so
today,
that was in, I think, the testimony with Lance where he had mentioned that Tyler was going to go hunting soon, that there was a hunting trip
Mhm.
planned, and that's why he asked him for the Dremel tool or something. So there was this hunting trip planned with his family, and that's why Lance is asking him like, "Oh, are you using that for the hunting trip that's coming up?"
right, and I have to say, I think Lance is being pretty cooperative here, based on my testimony. And I try. It's funny how people are so presume Tyler to be innocent, but so quick to jump on Lance and say that he's so guilty when it seems like he's being cooperative. I mean, yeah, he's nonchalant in these text messages, but he's
Can
cooperating as a
he get in
witness.
trouble? Can he get in any kind of trouble for not reporting this to the police on his own?
Um, Yeah, he could as like an accessory after the fact, but it would have to be something that like really he had to take some affirmative acts to
Okay.
further the to further cover up or further
And it
help him
seems
get
like he
away with
didn't.
it.
It seems like he didn't burn the note, so he's saying that was Tyler. If he would have burned the note, that would have been an action. It
Right.
doesn't seem like he deleted the text messages, that would have been an action. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that they're going to go after him for that, for obstruction or anything, because he's been cooperative. And maybe if it was longer than, a day or two, but basically Tyler Robinson the next day said that he was going to surrender himself. And so I don't think that they're going to charge Lance with anything like that. Unless there's some more evidence that comes out that we
Yeah.
don't know of. But judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. And then this text message from Lance is interesting. He just says, "Geez." So the first time he shows any like concern is about the $2,000 scope. Then Tyler says, "On my way home, 3.5 hours." Lance says, "Drive safe." Tyler says, "Delete this exchange." Uh, then Tyler says, "I'm sorry, but I think this might be it. If the way is clear, I can try and come your way to say goodbye." Lance asks, "Are the cops outside? Are there cops outside? And why are you calling the police anywhere?" Tyler says, "Not yet, but I have no doubt they will be on me within the hour. I have no intention of being drugged through the courts."
Okay, so this is this is him realizing they have video footage of them that they're releasing. They have the gun that they're releasing. So this is him. He's getting a message from his a text from his coworker saying this looks
Yeah,
like you. So now he's sort of panicking, and now he's telling Lance like this is it. Like I'm probably, going to be arrested soon, and I think
sure.
Tyler Lance might be like at his family's house while this is happening.
Yeah.
So,
His
yeah.
next response is, "I'm just at my parents' right now. Maybe I could make an excuse to head home for a bit." Tyler says, "You would need to do that right now." Lance says, "Any ideas?" Tyler says, "For an excuse, I don't know. For getting out of this, none. Short of my family being willing to cover for me, I am." Lance says, "I'm not going to be able to leave. What's something urgent I would need to leave for?" So he's asking Tyler, basically, "Give me a good excuse so I can tell my parents I have to go." Uh, Tyler says, "You could say I told you there's an emergency at home that I need you for with few details." Lance said, "I said I'm swapping laundry, heading home now." Tyler said, "Nice, I will see you soon." And then Tyler said, "Coworker has just sent me the still of meat on campus. What is your ETA?" And Lance says, "Like 3 minutes." So I found that text message which you just mentioned to be really interesting, and I wonder if we're going to see that coworker testify, or we're probably going to at least see that text message from the coworker of
Yeah, and so then now a coworker has to be involved, right?
yeah,
With
and
the Israeli military Erica Kirk, TPUSA conspiracy to off him.
right, and the coworker recognizes Tyler from the still on campus that Tyler, at least in these text messages, says is he calls it himself. He doesn't say there's a photo of someone that looks like me on campus. He says it's a photo of me on campus. So I mean, I don't know how
Yeah, I
you
know
know
how can you tell that this is him in this grainy and like the footage isn't to me that grainy. I'm like, have you guys we've been convicting people on murder since like we had the CVs that were like real actually grainy where you see like nothing but like, you can't even make out the color of a shirt. It's just like a darker shade or not, type footage. We've been convicting people of murder before there was even video footage available of
course,
anything.
of course.
So
And the thing about surveillance footage is that I've noticed this, and as a criminal defense lawyer and as like in civil law, surveillance footage is always shitty. I don't know why it's so hard to get good surveillance footage. It's like it's always just shitty enough that you can't really see who the people are or what exactly is happening, but it's good enough that you could see like the general idea. And it's like
yeah,
it's
and
really
like that's
frustrating.
all. If that's all you ever had, because video plays tricks on people. Like my face doesn't even look like how it does here for whatever reason. This camera sucks, so it makes like this bottom half of my face look wider, and sometimes it'll like if my hair's here because it's dark, it plays tricks, right? And
Mhm,
that's how it was with Karen Reed and her vehicle and her taillight. So the state used footage to try to trick the jury into
mhm,
thinking what they were seeing was something else. So they would, like I said, they played that video up until the point that her car gets past the snow reflecting off the light of her house,
mhm,
and it looks like there's a white piece there, which those cars do not have white lights in them, and but they don't tell that to they're not saying that. They're trying to say the taillight is broken, that's why we can see white there. And but
yeah,
then as she pulls up, it's red again because it's not doing that optical illusion. Then in another photo of a police car footage, so the camera of a police car who pulled up behind her car the next morning, and they took a still from that, the snow had drifted and those taillights on those Lexuses have a little ledge to them, like they kind of stick out a little bit. So if it's coming as it's coming down this way like this, it's the snow is collecting on that drift right there, which made an optical illusion like a piece was gone. But if you look at the other cars, all their taillights look like that too. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So there's actually weird artifacts, weird ways you could interpret video footage and stuff in light of the state if they were trying because another thing they did, because when they brought her car to the Sally port, it has a security camera.
mhm,
Okay, so what they did when they played the security camera in court is they mirrored it because the guys were hanging out outside of her car behind it by that taillight that was broken by John's arm for like a
mhm,
really long time. They were doing something over there, the cops. And so they flipped the footage to make it look like it was the other taillight. And it was
mhm,
sort of a mind because then you watch the driver get out. That's how we realized it was flipped. We're like, wait, the driver just got out on the wrong side.
mhm,
And so they were trying to make it appear like and they didn't wouldn't show this. This came out in the middle of trial, like in the jury, because they didn't give it to the defense. So they
mhm,
pull out this video and it's mirrored. The defense had to on the spot figure out what the heck was going on with this video.
mhm,
And so that it looked like they were hanging out at the opposite taillight that wasn't broken. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So they will use the optical illusion of video footage to oh, and then the camera conveniently that would see that taillight as she pulled in was
mhm,
completely dark. So they played that in court
mhm,
for the defense. They were like, and it was just completely dark. And it's like, oh,
mhm,
conveniently, you can't see anything on this video camera for some reason. You know what
mhm.
I mean? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so but this is just normal footage, but to me it looks clearer than most video footage I've seen.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, it's people that knew him were able to identify him, because they
Yeah.
know his mannerisms. They know maybe like the type of clothes that he likes to wear. He was wearing a hat and sunglasses, so like obviously people that don't know him, wouldn't jump out as like, oh, that person matches this, how he looks in court, all suited up and stuff. But people that knew him on a day to day basis, like his parents, his roommate, lover, and his coworker, they all seem to be able to recognize it. And again, these text messages, I don't know how you get past them. If it was one
And
or
it wouldn't you're not doing the case. They're not winning the case just only off of security footage. Like
right,
that's
well, these text messages are this is enough to win any case because people do not usually admit to crimes that they don't commit, right? You
Yeah.
don't go, and so, and if this was one text message, then you could maybe imply that someone swiped his phone and texted. But this
And
is
when they do admit to crimes they didn't commit, it's normally because the police have gotten involved, locked them in a room for like, 2 days and are using like the Reed method against them and confusing them and their low IQ and they're thinking they just want this to be over. I'll tell them what they want me to say and then I'll get to leave. And so
right.
that's normally when they come, or if they're like a crazy person calling into a tip line. So those are
Right.
like
Well, like
the,
that.
oh, your mic went out.
Something. But yeah, no, the first person that was arrested in this case was like what, schizophrenic in the crowd, right? That just said that I did it, or I don't know exactly how it
Oh,
happened.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
so
that
people
guy.
do that, but the difference is with people that are innocent and do false confessions is there's not any other evidence that puts them there that corroborates it. So here,
Right, yeah.
there's so much, and so these text messages are just a death knell. As a defense lawyer, um, there really is. What do you say about these text messages? How do you get past them? And the only real way you could is to say that they're all forged, but again, you need some foundation to say that, or fabricated. And otherwise, he's admitting to it. He says it in so many different ways. There's
And
just
people also don't realize that those are technically admissions of guilt, and those will come into court as confessions or admissions of guilt, you know what I
right.
mean? And also, sometimes people say, like, that's a hearsay or whatever, but when you have admissions of guilt or what do they call it? Ecstatic utterances,
Mhm.
those there are exceptions for hearsay on that. Like, so if somebody says something to you in the moment, that can actually get brought into court as a exception to hearsay.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
the excited utterance,
yeah,
or
excited
yeah,
utterance, that's it.
right. Was the other one dying declaration? If someone's dying and then they die, and so it's a dying declaration. So yeah, there's different exceptions. These will definitely come in. They'll come in as admissions, and they'll come in through Lance Twig's testimony. I don't know how you fight this. The only way is if you have to put Tyler on the stand to say that I did not send these. Otherwise, this is game, set, and match. These text messages.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, because guilty when you plead or, admit to a crime, it is, like, the worst thing for a jury to hear. Like,
yeah,
it's so hard for them to get that out of their brain while they're deliberating. Other jurors are gonna be like, "But he admitted to it," "He
yeah,
admitted to it."
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm just thinking as a defense lawyer, if this is my case, I am looking at this and being like, this is devastating. These text messages are devastating. I don't know what. Sorry, one second. I just need to. I don't know what we can do. We gotta try to get as much mitigating circumstances ready for the sentencing phase to spare your life. We're gonna try and get as much exclusions as possible on technical grounds, in the meantime. But
So this was the next day. He's texting Lance. Lance comes over, I'm guessing, and they say goodbye. Then he goes to his parents' house, which is like 10 minutes away, I think. Like, it's close by. He goes
yeah,
to his parents' house, and then that's when he has the conversation that is the parents relay to the police later that night. And then they bring in a family friend to help him with the turning over. The friend, because the family friend says, "If you stay here, the family's house is gonna get raided." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
let's just what evidence do you have? That's why he asked about the clothes, right?
Hmm.
Like, get everything out of here and so we can give it to the police. Then they drive to the sheriff's office
Hmm.
and turn himself in. Then they put him in a room, right? So we saw footage of that with his phone,
Hmm.
and then they wait there, and then they interrogate the parents. or not interrogate, but, they take statements from the parents.
Yeah.
Then then Tyler eventually is moved from there to where did they move him to?
Was that back to Orem? I
Yeah,
don't
maybe.
know.
Okay, so back to then they move him back to Orem or wherever the SBI place is, and then they
Then they do
probably
the
try to question him later. And so this is all so and then that's where that's kind of where like the evidence. Oh, but then they when he turns himself in to the sheriff's office, they send people out. This is probably why they didn't show up right away. They go out to his apartment. They go talk to Lance. And then that's when they got the photos, and then they find the targets that were shown in court, or a photo of them, and a
yeah.
bunch of boxes of rifles or weapon ammunition, and the burnt note in the trash, and there were other guns in the house,
And the Dremel tool,
and the Dremel tool.
which has his DNA. And by the way, when it comes to his DNA, this is another point that I keep making to the conspiracy theorists, is that they bring up that Lance Twig's DNA is on the towel and the screwdriver, but it's not on the gun or the bullets. And so personally think that's more incriminating of Tyler Robinson, because you would expect Lance Twig's DNA to be on some of these other
But they
objects.
don't say that. They say it is. Like, so
Yeah,
I've seen them all over. Candace Owens says it, Baron says it, all their little lackeys that follow them say it. They say that his DNA is on the rifle too, because they say things all the time that are like not true, not facts and evidence, or they change. Like for a while, they were saying that Lance's DNA was like 98. They switched it. So
yeah,
they
they
switched
switch
it
it.
from uh Lance being the least contributor to him being the most contributor when that's not what
Mm,
was said. And
right.
so their facts and stuff that they say, they like,
They just
and it's
make up
hard
stuff.
to, yeah, and it's hard to know, like, I know some of them are like doing it on purpose, but the ones that like follow them that then spread it around, I don't know. It's
Right.
hard to know who's doing what on purpose, like, which is one of the most frustrating things with this case is because okay, you're lying, but are you lying because Baron Coleman told you that and you, like, trust and believe him for some reason? Or, like, or
Mm,
do you know that he's lying?
yeah.
It's
Well,
just a hard thing.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there are some that are in good faith, and those are the people that we could reach, and they're just not following the case closely. They're not aware of the evidence, and so they come across bits and pieces, and they come across Candace Owens bits and pieces, and so they'll be like, "Oh my," whenever someone says this is a mess, or, of a case or something, I'm like, "No, this is not." The prosecution right now is so happy with their case. It's so strong. It's stronger than most cases. When he at 7:42 p.m., so this is about uh 2 hours before he turns himself in officially, or maybe an hour and a half, he says, "I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff." And to me, it's like, if these are fabricated text messages, how would they know how he's choosing to surrender himself? Um, yeah, I mean, again, you can come up with a theoretical possibility of it's all planned,
And
but
he says, "It was me," like, "I'm
yeah,
the one who did it. Look at the security footage," to
yeah,
his Discord friends too. But yeah, we should end it. It's hot, everybody's tired. Um so let's end it there. It was so nice having you on,
yeah.
and
It's a lot of fun.
I
I'm
hope you
gonna I'm
enjoyed
gonna
the
look
conversation.
I'm gonna look up the Karen Reed and was it Richard Allen? Do you have any
Yeah.
good recommendations for like a good documentary about those cases, or
Well, I'll send you some stuff. I'd have to look because I don't know, like there are people who totally think that they're guilty and then there's people who
yeah,
like in every case like this. That's why another thing like when Gary and other people are like, "What is wrong with all these people?" And it's like there are people that literally believe that Brian Koberger, even though he admitted to it finally and pled guilty, they believe that he didn't kill all those girls and it's a conspiracy, and there were podcasts made about it and whole channels made about it. So this happens with every high profile case. They blame, if a kid goes missing, they start dissecting everything the parents did when they came out to talk about their kid missing and all this stuff. So it's like, this is just what people do. So there are people who totally believe that they're guilty. But I will send you that stuff, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out. I really enjoyed this conversation, and
Yeah.
I will see all of you next time on The Eclectic Journalist.
Thank you, everyone.